do it. It's TOD.
Okay. Policy was set.
Good looking out. I really want to look at pictures.
Okay. Is everyone good?
We're good.
We're really good on spelling.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I just saw you standing up.
Plan. The United States federal government should implement an upstream price on an import fee on carbon dioxide equivalent emissions adjusted using an environmental integrity mechanism with a target of reducing economy-wide greenhouse gas emissions of 61 to 66% below 2005 levels by 2035. Advantage 1 is climate. Climate change causes extinction through cascading complex system failure. Mitigation is key. Adaptation causes accidental termination shock. Richards et al. 24. Emissions rise warming up 3 degrees. Selective feedbacks accelerating exacerbate warming runaway at 8 degrees. Climate change plus accidental risk. Climate change undermine ag and disrupt food, which leads to economic shocks, social instability, migration, conflict, and global scale understanding of worst case scenarios in order of underdeveloped, increasing complexity, increasing vulnerability, interconnected landscapes, synchronous cascading failures, creating potential for cost problems from across global scales. Climate change accidentals, misguiding climate change, single uniform process, and distributed impacts active different risk cascades, in interaction with other possible security, societal cost, volcanic eruptions, and non-pathogens, and create reinforced global death spirals. Others will insert will direct impacts make Earth uninhabitable. These are entirely different questions. Catastrophic warming, represented analysis are hard to come scholarship air inside. Of these travel possible conveys no doubt agreed satisfactory conservative science that builds consensus emergency responses such as this. I contribute to systemic risk problems, termination, talking of calamity, deafness, the system, significantly accelerate warming. It erodes ecosystem integrity, which is independently existential, and collapses general nuclear deterrence. Beard et al. 21. Competition between climate and environmental integrity, survival ecosystem, strong climate changes, contributing to desertification, degradation, and could cause 37% of all emissions of carbon ships that become observed in vegetation, freshwater clumps, and fish populations, there's a possibility more preventives. The environmental integrity can rebar to result in threat installation, however, ecological oxidizing, multiple critical systems, diverse, spread mechanisms, that scale systems, as far as for self-perpetuating catastrophes, or by research from Dr. Beyond, means that building studies, climate change can harm food, due to disruption, water, nitrogen, phosphate, and plant health, airborne land, and freshwater degraded climate change will increase agricultural pests and diseases, absence of equal resource data, lack of process, and the political system ability to facing climate change undermine this assistant social, political, environmental disruption, global injustice, and food water, and energy insecurity, increased poverty crisis, or escalate or possible conservancy. For emergencies, resource scarcity escalates a litany of nuclear dyads. Claire 20. Climate temperatures and levels diminish. Food and water supplies of resources become more violent. Nuclear India, Pakistan, and China will repart. Climate trouble and will capture nuclear upside. Rogue office military site wars of resources of Pakistan, India, China, and India share river system independent glaciers. Glaciers could lose 29% of this mass, and this produce long periods of negligible flow, starvation, chaos would make water to be the launch point for escalation. India and China consider damming rivers move that could easily trigger war that would invite using the seriously, and China could grow annexation of uninhabited water rich. Russia and Siberia war would prompt these cities in the Arctic warming, making the region attractive resources, exceptional beach cars, expand up to the region, alchemist, nuclear implications, numerous weapons are there. Geography lens and a key role in nuclear scenarios. Natural adaptation is impossible. Beard et al. 21. The energy expansion of the Holocene humanity was resilient to each individual impact global catastrophic of impacts occur simultaneously. Numerous historical climatic changes that have implicated collapse societies, including the Western Roman Empire and dozens of others. Societies have a history of adapting, however, the relatively stable Holocene with resilient ecosystem assisted recovery and temperature climate change is more rapid, pervasive, global, and severe, large scale. The states have remained in the narrow climatic niche. Modern societies developed hidden fragility, sandfly shocks. The plan solves climate change only. Attacks for steep decarbonization and abatement across the economy throughout life cycles. Alternatives cause rebalancing, cannot solve free riding. Vandenberg and Bonds at 24. Both stones were Cold War, Lewis, and do not represent counterfactual anymore. Emissions about pricing and critics political extensive literature indicating effectiveness and efficient policy contribute to less production, energy, need abatement costs, make pricing useful policy for destruction, result higher cost pricing, resource control over all emissions, economy prices, source, all carbon and cycle will reflect steering towards systemic effectiveness, carbon pricing costs, small reductions, disregard to real effects, system pricing costs, partial effects, system by producers and households, remain included direct and indirect savings. Pricing controls both alternative instruments for rapid standards make use of cheaper subsidies, make purchase affordable, small for use coupling between energy and GPUs due to content by benefits or around 50% higher subsidies not been effective low carbon. The sources of subsidy less than 1/4 of fossil fuel use, the rest of meeting increasing demand increasing. The critics offer selective evidence typical literature demonstrates high emissions last 15 analysis 142 countries times per euro, reduces annual emission growth by 0.3%, matching higher prices than lithium. Suggests innovation tend to be incremental in value, suggested to errors and biases, more thorough review, because that pricing influence patents, pros and bloom, take pricing costs and transform the system without proof of joint recognitions about our need more than direct decarbonization. Climate being a global public good, journey for writing alternatives to overcome free riding critics. Do not show complete knowledge of literature nor see their to compare policy reflecting ideological dogmatic viewpoint. Divestment effects outweigh the green paradox. Bauer et al. 18. Without CO2 tax, the global emissions were to 60 gigatons has been CO2 taxes are now divestment dominates green paradox with both models metal tax case for the green paradox with the maximum never sees 1 GT CO2 cumulative effect raise. This will then divestment when the taxes introduced emissions are all below baseline with capital causing long lived assets and electricity virtually separate. There's a decrease in nuclear incentivizing investments in low carbon alternatives. The plan's environmental integrity mechanism, or EIM, guarantees reductions in reducing political blowback. Brooks and Keohane 20. Environmental integrity mechanism provides certain quantity of emissions EIM just upwards when eventually see the target defense industry's preference for cost certainty without environmental preference for environmental certainty. EIM offers assurance mission goals will be met even if the initial tax fails and the legislation specified low price while ensuring the taxable rights can provide reducing political risk $10 per ton would be unlikely to achieve target given uncertainty will be arranged in EIM can set a path at lower and reducing opposition. The target is ambitious but achievable. Schmidt and Levin 24. Biden set a target to cut emissions 26% below 2005 levels by 2030 rather than emissions but the achievable to deliver successive total climate crisis and market progress useful cut emissions up to 56% even further if the US is able to leverage on tech policy. The range would be consistent with a straight line to 2015 at zero. Upstream taxes are easy to administer and cover the whole economy. Culture to 15. Taxation of consumption will be composite upstream. Enterprise literature means prior to combustion being processing and distributed wages limited over taxpayers, which will refining serve 150 or 1300 coal mines, but a small number of firms are small number of gas firms around 8,000 compared to gas significant gas processing plants are 500 to 1,500 taxpayers go for the last vast bulk of all to contracts company income tax of 1.8 USD imports paid volumes are easy classified measure. There would be limited opportunities to bypass measuring upstream would be similar to excess SRs, already class excise on petroleum and coal. The existing framework can be adapted and familiar to peers. Import fees decarbonize the world. Harvard Law Review 22. Climate policies done by legal production will be exceeded by increased state tariffs instead by the action on regulating jurisdictions by imposing calls on imports interested in protecting jurisdictions instead of implement policies to gain exemption, carbon tariffs, and international action. States cannot impose them. Farber and Wolfram 25. On international trade statement, for global conversation pressing from the federal to state their questions on the U.S. rules over to policies about fewer levers they cannot enact tariffs. Only harnessing market signals solves. Range 20. Market forces always play a critical ordinance in the world. Encompass activity that industrial revolution markets themselves. Clean energy, clever crystals are angry foods of economic development or employment, while technology, health, clean air, food security, islands, growth by hospitals is a function market or test to transition to a local economy suitable to the same force of the energy infrastructure. And again, a price on carbon along swap to motivate talent and fires opportunity trillions markets is the most powerful tool in our arsenal. Food director, we need to go up. Markets also give me with it. We unlock engineering entrepreneurial minds to think otherwise it's not useful. High chains are too complex. A scale not into too big cuts to emissions must be seen. And so advantage 2 is competitiveness. The US is losing the green tech race, but Trump can turn it around. Harnessing domestic markets to outpace China appeals to his deal-making instincts, even if he's bad for the climate. Ball 25. Trump could win a competition which had to sell low carbon tech and matches the little president directs competition to Kanash. Joe Public Witcher, Republic, or Video Trump articulate where it's going to make US manufacturing non-competitive. Meanwhile, low carbon technologies are surging the combat zero into an epic fight. The weapons are fees on import tax and policies. Governments are key while Washington equivocated Beijing leverage manufacturing and every green sector state support for green tech has been called significant power help play. The Donald Trump tapped into incentive without China receiving the US making money for the eliminating decarbonizing from planes instincts that deal making the US is financial power has become capital force can invest in innovativeness instruction money think reducing the advantages developing technology Trump a durable backing right. The inevitable rise of renewables and carbon prices will lock the US out of global green markets. The plan is key to preserve American competitiveness. Patenting and Kennedy 21. Car price emissions brought the board adjustment to protect firms having to compete with countries with weaker regulations and border tax and maintain competitiveness. The US EU announced a border tax and will be subject to this tax as more countries and that pricing risk elsewhere grows. A robust price ensure American firms access to international markets pricing compare firms for transition, strengthening competitiveness, global shift is inevitable. US first one sure US companies into industries will become the linchpin of the global economy. And the plan would be coordinated for cuts to ad hoc command and control regulations. All these 16. If Trump uses the powers to make the possibilities for rigging and passing jail, good about regulatory reform which Republicans support, 12 tax for regulatory policies, Republicans oppose the tax subsidy for command and control of carbon president. Congress is possible representatives voted for a resolution that attacks to be detrimental and politically invisible to advance the state level tax for Republican House. However, tax to replace the regulatory regime including the serious consideration progressive would support the swap long-term economy over emissions reductions without outweigh reservations about parenting. The CAA deregulation is not inevitable. Perry statutory rollback with the plan's EIM captures the upsides of pricing while minimizing downsides of regulation. Burns and Keohane 20. Every country after rollback of all regulations encountered significant delays and step-by-step visit rights are appealed authority rates and tax major administration could still promulgate regulations and proposals of trade. Regulation for a tax will have to provide assurance and taxable issues reductions and EIM offers assurance. In combination of taxation and deregulation harnesses innovation power to win the clean tech race. Baker 3 at all 20. American energy policy must be because you're cost effective and every regulation tax credits and subsidies pricing the most cost effective is better. To rely on the market to determine winners are for endorsed by 35 countries economists for shares in 27 lower than 15 shares in the CAA. Then economy-wide fee would produce faster greater reductions at lower cost of living regulation for state investments will not affect regulation for which it is not affected by good flexibility make long-term investments regulations to build a predictable for innovation fees and most profitable ones for technology providability fee would propel its employment. Winning the clean tech race is key to prevent cyber attacks and preserve US non-proliferation. Cred Jaffe 23 transcends on global digital technologies and electronic networks will become asymmetric warfare elections can become central energy bureau by 2050 intercountry wires. We ask this military can become certain that the more economy electrified the more the higher exposure to attack the hacked project electricity security will take refocus to move leading in innovative technologies that offer resilience as well as cyber defense preemptive and prepared best regime responsible flexible versus countries can dominate the export market for new countries such as extensive use the Lewis and San Francisco North for GRs can increase back electricity wars or the crisis of be credible into the US first to be permanent system protection of its great reputational reasons to limit vulnerability US must commit to great development. Cyber tax cause extinction modern 20. Let's just throw probably compromise cyber existential that grid failure well these ports with to follow communication disease hospitals road drug transactional cycles rate disease would re-emerge attacks already occurred Russia slaughter heart thousands of great cyber attacks in US energy base urban US trains the battle for the street cyber attacks essentially are redoubling current Russian service will and activate sharp self-resource to be used against the US for Korea and improving weaknesses in grid defense.
Judge? Subira? page 2, why is the U.S. expanding into nuclear markets or nuclear power markets more credible to allies than like preserving no first use and remaining like extended deterrence?
Because those are declarations of the U.S., but the Jaffe card says that specifically material domination of
Like
and
your
being
Bradley
able to
evidence
control
is-
where supplies
your
go
Bradley
within
evidence
global
is
nuclear markets are
referencing
important for
non-proliferation
influencing
in
other
the
countries.
context of like the NDS. Like, why is your
Well,
one
that-
line
no, it's not-
assertion that
it's not
nuclear
saying,
power
like-
relevant?
It's not saying NDS sets uniqueness, it's just saying the U.S. made this declaration, national defense strategy, that endorses non-proliferation, export
I guess
markets
like
are
where
what
have you
make
read
that
cards
credible.
that these allies like Japan, South Korea, Australia, whatever, would be willing to pursue a nuke just because the U.S. lacks nuclear energy exports?
Yeah, I mean, the Bradley card says that allies, the only thing preventing them from pursuing nuclear weapons
Okay,
is
so
political
you agree that
considerations.
security commitments outweigh the
Wait,
first
what? No,
advantage?
well, like, security commitments
Well, yeah, first advantage.
low without the affirmative.
First advantage. Can you explain to me the internal link between ecosystem integrity and like further cascading existential risks?
Yeah, do you mean the general nuclear deterrence stuff, or just like
Like
why
you made a
it causes
claim that like
extinction?
climate causes cascading ecological whatever, and then that controls X risks. Walk me through
Oh,
that.
yeah, so the general climate stuff is like warming filters the stability of societies broadly, migration flows, refugees, the ability to negotiate with other countries when they're not, or when
Yes.
they're in
Your
environmental
evidence-
stress is way
Your
harder,
evidence is a substantive of like every single risk happening simultaneously.
which is true in the case of extreme warming. The Richards evidence says that
And
it would
what
cause things like
degree-
zoonotic
your-
pathogens,
the
threats to
Richards
food
evidence-
security.
The Richards
Yeah.
evidence identifies multiple brings, like it says one thing is like 12 degrees or something. Which specific, what is the threshold to cause
I guess,
everything?
the Richards evidence also says that every degree does matter, but it says that above 3 degrees around positive feedback loops accelerate runaway warming.
Okay.
It also says that in general, measuring it per degree is not accurate because will impacts make Earth uninhabitable is
Sure.
the wrong question. Instead,
yeah,
we should
the
understand it as different
Rand
risk
evidence,
cascades.
The last card about market signals. This one, why? It just says that we need to use markets to harness financial incentives.
Yeah.
Why is the market key as opposed to just like incentivizing or subsidizing? Like,
Well, I
what's the
think you
card
just,
reference?
you mean, subsidizing is also the market, so are you asking why a price,
Well,
taxes key?
like you just said, like increasing financial support is an outcome.
Yeah,
of the
well, a
market.
price
Why
on
is the
carbon
market
specifically
necessary?
cuts down fossil fuel consumption. The Vandenberg evidence is really good. It says that subsidies don't crowd out fossil fuel use. They just make renewables available but increase net consumption.
Okay. So the plan.
Where are your spin? It's set. It's 9 off advantage 1 finish. Is everyone good? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
Chemical Smith, the United States federal government should implement a price and import fee on carbon dioxide equivalent emissions adjusted using the environmental integrity mechanism with a target of reducing not all non-chemical sector greenhouse gas emissions to 61 to 66% below 2005 levels by 2035. The net benefit is the decarbonization chemical industry bad yet on the decarbonization pick the counterplan competes because the pink side of economy-wide petty 20 tax on fossil fuels disproportionately affect chemical industry. The new chemical will be affected by tax sensitive energy intensive use of petroleum increase cost of polyethylene by 2% and force a short private investment in new capacity tax reduction and a defossilization pick. The United States federal government should adopt an upstream price and import fee on carbon dioxide equivalent emissions adjusted using the environmental integrity mechanism with a target of reducing non-chemical sector greenhouse gas emissions to 61 to 66% below 2005 levels. By 2035, forced decarbonization in the chemical industry, defossilization solves and achieves identical outcomes to the plain decarbonizing the chemical industry, causes total collapse. Gershon Kumar, 24 weekend chemicals to produce products and services from molecules at the heart of industry product they form feedstock for manufacturing. They can focus on defossilization versus decarbonization, carbon utilization for computers, high value chemical with lower intensity, periodic fuel switching, electrification, feedstock catalysts, make this more efficient improvements, reduce the impact by 40% thoughtful design, can differentiate fossil and non-fossil CO2 to maximize benefits, carbon pricing can make them competitive. Chemical innovation solves extinction danger war. 14 new technological innovations, population, climate, proliferation, that reduce waste, research, and extinction, make 35 dependent on geological resources, and deforestation may be unable. Decision survival suppliers, quantities, transitions, non-toxic, sustainable materials, we define the tipping point for toxicity in the future and raise the future license while processing chemicals and new technologies. These include nanophase changes and regenerative chemicals, the industry produce healthier, sustainable chemicals. Advantage Council, the United States federal government to create a national innovation policy to increase financial support for low and zero carbon technologies, including at least nuclear power, solves warming, and clean tech leadership, SADA 20 innovation policy, and council modernize coordinate between industry transform sectors and interglobal leadership involved in practice placing innovation at the core, public investment levels of scale, and increase competitiveness, increase incentive for R&D, establish policies that stimulate areas in STEM, support, access for R&D and growth, create opportunities for funding, confidence, growth of BizCon are high now, curbing 127, America's econ, increase beyond long-term average in AA, 0.15 growth of production and employment indicator for thing, BizCon posted, following predictions with firms anticipating friendly policy, undershrub, unpredictable pricing policy, spillover, and shatter business confidence, engage 24 common policies and prices, have negative impact on stock titles, effectively affects environment and for the carbon price, lead to increase in impact costs for those directly in carbon policy, signal policy makers result in reduced emission policy, taken as a surprise indication that policy tightening will continue in the future, will also be an objective of ensuring that all firms centralize their emissions, business confidence sustains high aggregate demand, pessimism ensures recession, Nasruddin, 24, business confidence affects econ influences decision to investment, increase 80, increasing current to right as result, econ grows, producing more business, increasing recruitment, unemployment falls, will spend, grow, econ allocating, the to expand policy, make it difficult to regular business plans, investments, rise, policy takes steps beyond, expectation when business are optimistic, they invest in pessimistic, the reason invest 80 decline, lead to recession, strong economic growth contains global hotspot inflation, white all 24, economic decline, will be the catalyst for major conflict troubles with radicalism as the 1930s, past nationalism, lead to trade disputes, battle for control of resources, such as oil, rare earths, could intensify conflicts, could eruption, growth, continue to fill their flashpoints that could bring powers into conflict, Taiwan, Doku, SKS, the US, and Russia, China, and India, conflict, eruption, influenced by economic factors, oil, DA, carbon pricing, crushes demand, triggering price shock, campus burden 23, companies and markets with climate policies are exposed to climate risk, consider oil when there's turmoil in the US energy market, news mentioned carbon pricing, drive global ocean, negative climate news, and inflatable shocks, increase uncertainty about viability of carbon assets in low carbon economy, investor pricing, climate risk, and other stocks, oil, the West is the main announcement of net zero, or carbon pricing, innovation, competitiveness, and intercept markets independently, meeting Vision 2030 commitments are the only pathway to restricting Iranian proliferation, and upholding insurance for 23, Saudi, issued compatibility between Iran and Tehran, resulting balance of international rules, Saudi de-escalation is part of Vision 2030, the Saudi coverage of Iranian and Western investment provided power for blocking the card, Iran is under pressure from permanent sanctions, isolation, these increase the need for support to Iran to consider uranium, the agreement gives Saudi stake in Iran's advanced action, the agreement shields escalation with Iran, the fundamental position is Iran is a world Riyadh movement against the deterrence, Riyadh will manage Iran's expectations, and sanctions, extinction, Denmark 24, Iran's considered nuclear, the energy point, this Iran intention to increase risk of conflict, Iran, Iran's advances, or the GCPO, wherever there appear openness to de-escalate Iran can produce nuclear material in a way that the time will drop further there, is great with the US miscalculates and across the red line, next to the perception of nuclear threat, perception of mass nuclear capability for the weakening of proliferation, realms under the between NATO, and Russia to Toronto, Moscow to defend the relationship, class tensions, or nuclear miscom, to combat LNG, DA, domestic hydrocarbons, lower prices, and unlock geopolitical advantages, the energy policies, to rail the transition, most 22, the only path to low prices, decrease hydrocarbons, US holds great potential, increase your production, and regular revenues, increase power control, questions, and political, the force fast transition, is not feasible and is dangerous, fracking strong now, but pricing, Russian, below 22, factoring widely used to produce oil, boosting US energy, currently leadership of gas supply firms with high emissions, subject to pricing rates strongly, relative profitability, reputation, negatively affected earnings, post from directly affected by the instruments that permit success for file, valuable and gas fracking, higher emission residues, more valuable for financial difficulty, strong domestic energy, reduces Russian influence, which limits European independence and enhances geopolitical stability. Walkers 24 US military spoken technology to keep tightening power screws, continue with development of new projects, future energy, diversity, LG become more swing and increasingly insecure world, zero sum global supplies would be exposed with the last time Russia country Europe to do nothing you concerned about ensuring continuity of gas from Russia at all costs. Acquisitions, hostility, stop with the US which supplies from elsewhere to never get new roll over. Invest in Russian aggression over reliance on Russian energy, key reason the US continue LG energy, foundation of Russia's petrol economy revenues falling from oil were greater than the cost of US LNG exports 1624. BC and Russia's share focus for the Russia's LNG equals US where Putin personally long seen LNG is the key to Russian minister. Physical growth, weakness, green lights, military, Russian aggression, Freeman 24, Russian military budget growing, how the president kind of lost Putin to invest in war machine and lower threshold for use in these military belted, organic conventional high intensity wars, lens global investment to give motives that base cost massive military Russian cities, expenditure in the sales of national stable sustainable health and spending means, coming to mass asymmetric nuclear arsenal development, DA recovering in the status quo, Veritas 24 global, econ gradually recovers progress on undeniable to concentrated advanced econ growth in developing economies, so expected to pick up current climate prices are insufficient to collapse fossil demand, but the plan breaks the cable effects. I'll have 23 half of what produce in developing countries economically independent for research to the deal, which transition based on current legends demand takes all responsible for 40% of production, adequately diversified middle class for particular shares, revenue transition partnership, not insufficient finance focus on coal education, healthcare, and never reduced revenue source for the cost 2014 cross South Common 8.5 billion reduced revenues effective development, triggering unemployment of government spending to go to compensation for the jeopardizing the ability of public sector jobs, social security for workers directly, and indirectly supported development South Station 122. The development is indicator of tech and power that underscores the importance of poverty benefits future, increased diversity of global institutions, raising and really diverse economic countries get educated participate institutions, improves quality of governance, navigate access to reduce the risk of pandemics and disability, poverty, strategies income, improve health and overall investment for make popular and dependent poverty, cause instability, terrorism, and crime rates the United United States federal government should adopt and abide by policy that force new tariffs while banning all tariffs implemented after January 30th, force implementing further restrictions on immigration bans, such as tampering with interest rate decisions. Rate cuts expected now. Schengen 121 Fed left rates unchanged. No urgent need to cut inflation was an important factor to determine coverage possible tariff and immigration policy not yet clear they might be. If progress made rate cuts happen or May or June, future rate cuts are likely to direction dependent on payment data for inflation. The plan tariffs rises economy wide, which guarantees rate hikes. Minutes 23. Energy prices risen 5.8 thanks to carbon tax and energy inflation data prolonged with plan pressure on inflation. Carbon policy retail. Higher interest rates, monetary policy focus on inflation and expectations currently well above target. Push makes a raise energy prices important participants raising heating utility critical for every industry will cause first raise for saving profit. And workers support for higher wages, carbon price stocks and blended inflation expectations rising 1% relative prices up. Rising approaching significant tax over 50. At a point for to realize inflation. High rates of short tech innovation. Contract 24. High rates of short investing in tech is slower innovation that can limit growth widely used and get a good accurate investment in IPP. See R&D and patent for every 1% rise in rates R&D and VC. Below 25% patent decline by 9%. Shifts over academic output by decreased total TFP, reduce accurate demand, make less popular innovations, less necessary new products, appetite for research, reduce financing, rates of ventures developed 30% decline in important all industries. Patent filed for important tech, ML and cloud computing, funded by rates, extinction, credit 21 for 70 years, multiple conflict between this year. Capability to determine multi-type questions, stability, AI, to use the strategic stability, calling into question viability, force solution, no parties, no control, so you have control and the absence of from the core of order they will like to see if I for corporate any advantage reinforce ability, China, Russia, version, stability, flexibility, provides advantage needs to conflict with regulation. Advantage 1. Warming survivable and net beneficial chloride. 23. Line is getting alarming danger warming having likely 4 degrees not accidental after very hard degree 4 likely peak 3 degrees Celsius with very little 10 4 degrees Celsius 5 we don't say below 2 degrees Celsius 3 by 5 likely stable rise very slow 140 years for every meter we can adapt. Time kills so long they match building for hour or low to like a genesis of down climate hydrological sales quite managed after society thrive. Line is a little about extreme weather climate that's from disaster negative positive right paths but if I get tune pace in the movie try to climb each year humans live well under conditions alarms for the measure warming alleviate suffering and affect small warmers that yield food. Calamities willfully wrong farmers can adapt across the life minimize biodiversity migration habit restoration of refugees. Seed as in DNA time flooded eco pressures will be considered or warming could be nothing to be afraid of no climate wars and to be localized and easily diffused. Letters 21 conflict characteristics of simulators DML fusing arguing consistency as the core academic lit remains divided consultation locking class increase uncertainty increases every step is not strong evidence for direct link articles not secrecy is built in and outcomes impacts are contingent on other factors not global they may be regional effects may be alleviated and adapted at these levels models are not accurate economists in the opposite view climate mismanaged will advantage 2. No cyber impact, no intent, de-escalatory empirics and empirics prove earlier. 25 cyber escalation is very toxic. It's de-escalatory ample empirical evidence of escalation limited in cyber. There's a little retail extended 30 limited in scope data. Shows responsibility in the US and major adversaries escalation of random interaction intervention by rivals efforts not leave to escalation ladder or war games and escalation was attempt to work out the situation. Escalation not dominant response fear. It's not motivated overreaction. No grid impact. Question 18. Grid is not about to go down groups and not demonstrate destructive capabilities. Not support the claim attack and is great disability. And segmented circle is object was not cause widespread backlogs would require highly relative is not effectively seal no prolef and no impact. Miller 20. There could be some avoid alarmism. Prolef is a bit far slower. Weapons could be little advantage. Well, is basically benign dozens of people countries have been considered arsenal of a few. Have also huge numbers of countries even consider the opportunity to ban realization nuclear weapons for 50 decades of predicted about Shanghai casting for default to proliferation. Been slower leaders appreciate weapons danger costing and relevant neighbors weapons would be exceedingly difficult to obtain country with proliferated compound quietly and stories and medical use and use weapons. I need to read another quote. I sent the correct kind of plain text for the decarbonization. I read it. I just wasn't writing it up.
Yes, actually. This is for the second.
The second counter plan in the doc had the wrong text in the second doc. I sent the right text.
Okay. Can we start cross-examination? Can I ask the first question? Okay. What is different about the first plank to the plan?
The first plan to the second counter plan?
Yeah.
It is functionally quite similar.
Like,
the difference.
what words did you delete?
Oh no, it competes topically.
Got it.
Actually, we also deleted economy-wide. So.
No, you didn't. But,
Yeah, I sent the correct text in which we did.
But
So.
the plan doesn't say. Okay.
The plan does say economy-wide.
You skipped debt reconciliation. Is that
I
right?
skipped politics, correct.
Okay. Anything else?
I skipped cards on case.
Well, yeah, but
I did skip another office
okay.
position.
You read 2 DAs that seem contradictory. The Russia dissent is about how the plan benefits Russia in terms of their oil production, and then the Saudi DA is like the plan lowers prices and hurts Saudi Arabia. Reconcile that for me.
You just described the LNGDA backwards. Like the plan would hurt Russia.
What? The plan? Oh, wait. No, that's not. So if the plan hurts Russia.
Oh, I see what you mean. I see
I
what
think
you
you've
mean.
got your
The
DA
plan
backwards.
reduces LNG exports to Europe. That doesn't implicate Russia's oil production.
What? Okay, sorry. Just to clarify, your impact card says high oil prices, and the militarization of the economy could allow Putin to continue investing in his war machine. So clearly we're saying plan good for Russia gas/oil production.
No. The plan hurts domestic U.S. production of natural gas, which hurts exports to Europe. That's the key internal link for our Wattpin calculus.
Not like, well, yes, but it says reduces Russian influence because Europe is currently relying on Russia. So you said that the relationship between the plan and other oil exporters is that other oil exporters would increase their market share because the plan hurts domestic production. Why is that not also beneficial for Saudi
No,
Arabia?
it's about U.S. exports to those countries.
Yes, U.S. exports decrease, Saudi exports increase. Why is that not good for
Saudi
Saudi
exports
Arabia?
where would increase?
To everywhere. Like the U.S. is reducing their supply. Why is that?
It's about natural gas, not like domestic oil. Like,
Your impact card is about oil
No,
prices,
no,
but
the
I'm sure
internal
it would
link
be
card-
bad for oil if it was bad for natural gas.
no, but our internal link card is specific to fracking, which is a production that is used for.
Fracking is, well, your
For-
card
for
says
gas.
fracking is also used for oil. It says fracking has been widely used to produce crude oil.
No, but the part of the card that explains why the plan would be bad for
I
that
think
is
it's
about
just really
gas.
overview. Okay, industrial policy or like the advantage counter plan, what is the net benefits to them?
BizCon. And like if you say like none of the other DAs that's the one in C, but if you're like it doesn't solve formula.
Sure.
because
Why does
it
it
doesn't-
shield BizCon?
It doesn't price carbon.
It does price carbon. It just says that the renewable energies get financial support. That would
It's not-
obviously
it's not a
imply that
carbon
fossil
price.
fuels become
It's not a
less
carbon
competitive.
price in the way that our Hangate evidence describes a carbon policy shock. A carbon policy shock is one in which firms that have carbon intensive assets are negatively impacted, which is
They
not
would be
true.
negatively impacted by subsidies, I'm
They would
assuming.
not be negatively impacted by the subsidies. Our evidence is specific to
Okay, and
increase
then
input
status,
costs for
is that
farmers.
conditional?
The status is conditional.
Okay.
Okay. Warming, competitiveness.
Okay, it's gonna take me a second. What? Okay, yeah.
Warming, competitiveness. Sorry, it's also gonna take me a second. Chemicals pick. Decarbonization pick. Subsidies. BizCon. Development. Rates. Saudi. Energy.
We're good.
So, I called it the tech counter plan.
Sorry, what?
I put tech counter plan, but subsidies, that
Yeah.
is BizCon.
Yeah, and then BizCon, development, rates, Saudi energy.
Rates. Saudi. LNG.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Mission's good?
Yeah, we're good.
Got it. Cool.
What is it? What is it? Back defense one, running on medium. Get the fuck out of here too. And it doesn't assume scientific conservatism. There is an inclination toward being underestimating the risk of climate change, both to fossil consensus and dissuade fossil fuel campaigns, and because of scenarios are difficult to model. Third is that does not assume how we're impacted by social desperate, social, economic, and political systems are tightly coupled and warming. Serves to destabilize all of them through things like food shocks and migration crises, which means that it is not a real whether it is hot house or that you can change this risk cascade for is the historical record is relevant. Beard evidence says that the beard evidence says that the climate change this time is happening much faster and destabilizing the narrow climate nation which all of human life evolved from the sea. Two is the warming and worse defense at the same time. The clear evidence does not assume that China, India, and Pakistan will dam each other's rivers systems, which causes economic devastation in the other countries, and they have their nuclear arsenals and high levels in a particular scenario. And the Arctic doesn't assume that the U.S., China, and Russia are rapidly militarizing the Arctic, which causes miscalculation, drop the biodiversity impact, and the general nuclear deterrence impact of the niche. Two. What is one yes cyber impact? There is intent from Russia, which the when they see monarch evidence that will be large scale because there are mass grid vulnerabilities, which is Jaffe evidence that is relevant if it causes war because it unleashes a period of horribles and to great societal adaptation for things like healthcare, transportation, etc. I want to see two yes grid impact is not air out. This evidence does not assume large scale cyber attacks from random. I want to see three is prolific defense. Not with the car conceded takes out the impact to Saudi oil chemical pick. One, permutation, add non-GHG to the plan. I've inserted the tax. Two, upstream is key. It captures all emissions. The counterplan cannot capture all emissions of industry upstream or some say particular sector. Quarter 15. Upstream CT is administratively better than downstream on emissions experience of excess tax use from practical measurement to which other components of the upstream CT compares to coverage with civil administration. 3, do both. 4, do the counterplan. The net benefit is a complete whiff, which relates on the other page to the decarbonization bit. 1, do the counterplan. First, not need to be topical. It justifies offsets and competing off of normal means. Second, do both. Third, the plan and the second plank of the counterplan. 4, no competing on economy-wide. Both counterplans modify the AF mandate and there could be decarbonization that is economy-wide, but if the chemical industry is allowed to continue emitting, that just means that another industry would have to emit less 5 insofar as there is a deficit. Every degree counts. 6, conditionality is voting issue for 2 easy choice. We never invest the best. Counterplan is just because there create no cost of the negative. You can only hurt the F on other pages. That doesn't suffice. And counterplan research and clash on both sides destroys education. Dispo insurance 2 easy choice. You can kick. But we perm that is that 1, total whiff. Chemical sector emissions are not affected by an upstream carbon dioxide effects, oil, gas, and the oil, gas, and coal feedstocks, and fuel industrial processes per their evidence, which means that the plan does not tax them even because it is not a tax on embodied carbon. Second, carbon utilization is fake, which means that they can't, insofar as it is upstream, they can't solve all emissions since Amendment 16. Is that there's no silver bullet anyone to say after that solution. This is a cost evidence as sales by capability to roll sufficient scales way beyond anything strong locations above carbon even the number of releases without only cost effective for years experimental plants work, but no one is comprehended how to scale up carbon capture as the solution by very rare think of it as we went into technology now looking at the right thing away to think is everything we need to be in these weeks have needed to hold system how much money price on emissions will create our environment implemented and integrated shot eliminating 2 degrees 3 no internal link no evidence that's the chemical innovation that's happening now the is calling for specific substances and innovation in this decades 4 no toxemia impact or 18 chemical pollution atmospheric aerosol abundance against the planetary boundaries there documented mechanisms of hazards and stop over resource self-storage extinction is nation developed like clean up air water and reduce pollution to save economies become circular damage places like the decline of pollutants are recognized that is reasonable to affect governance acts before we suffer eco-catastrophe subsidies or tech conflict. 1, doesn't solve competitiveness because it doesn't eliminate commodity cost and compliance with national regulations. 2, can't solve global emissions counterplan is not modeled because it does not impose a cost on non-regulated countries. That's HLR. 3, costs and emissions rebound subsidies purely complement industrial, purely complement the non-substitute for fossil fuels. That's Vandenberg. 4, 12 circumvent slashes numbers through other company rules like the plans price adjustments guarantees we can hit emissions targets. 4, the state 5 can the state can pick winners. 2, 11 by supporting specific technology. Now we like the protect us mistake smaller footprint state sacred maybe tomorrow's prior. The problem is irreversibility capital expenditures with the decision over 50 years. The state less dangerous for growth by taxing it is essential to maintain an carbon economy for new tech policy should not encourage sickness. 6 subsidies fail if they go subject to regulatory capture. Pending 22 legal subsidies will disproportionately go to firms that have political influence. Politicians decide what to subsidize for them. Efficiency is not primary. With a carbon tax, we don't have to identify anything. The Viscount does not. Do both. Subsidies counterplan do both. It also leaks to average benefit because it's a climate policy. Viscount. 1 terrorist thumb NYT 23. Asian and European stock market dropped as overall while from Trump shares begin decaying. Hong Kong's being fall to more than 2.5%. Europe's into the index is now tumbled. S&P 500 futures led 1.5%. The tariffs come in severe shock rate strategies that just make the markets refuse to take that threat seriously and are pricing the risk. 2 Viscount doesn't matter. Talks about back rate. 18 confidence is doubles as an indicator of correlation is more. With growth is more confidence. Average minus 18. Economy growth 3.5% per year. Net confidence is negative growth. Plus the economy tend to go through 10 years ago. Businesses are naturally looking nervously. 3 carbon taxes boost growth. Bank models exclude innovation and market creation benefits, giving the effect back off. 23 litigating these taxes. Most analysts are relied on CG models. Analyze Colombian tax and if anything models impact on GDP, carbon tax, 50 countries longer on GDP, or rates are driven by more 5 fundamentals. The policy variables, there's no impact on GDP. Why does CG overestimate the impact of the model that includes the deductions from creation and tech? Carbon tax designed to reduce emissions by about 90 leads to positive increase in output tech and creation channels are turned off, and most models they find adverse impacts for COVID in a way disprove their internal link, but not ours about fundamentals. 5 Trump is bad for GDP because of tariffs and inflationary policies. Development. 1 does not cause extinction. Things causing problems is not an impact. 2 Trump thumbs Russia. 2 3 Trump trade war diversification of supply chains for developing economies. Removing crucial growth pay Mexico face tariffs marginally lower than China against African competitive manufacturers. Not likely. Advantage fortune unlikely advantage. 3 growth is low. Interest rates slump and development. That's also their impact is blocked. But towards order 117 developing economies are growing. The president is very different. Sorry, Parker's law. We don't see reform anymore. Fiscal policy. You need structural reforms to improve education. How the track investment in U.S. rates are higher for longer. Higher rates to draw capital from developing countries. There's no shortcut for the plan can accept developing economies from its area. 5 the energy transition is inevitable in the long term path. That's 5 makes 6 developing economies export to other countries. Rates aside, you need this kind of plan. 1 do both. The signal structurally biased. The market never wants to signal the plan. 2 perception alone is sufficient. The counterplan is not credible. Reuters 121 markets more volatile. Trump returned up to non-post. There's a lot of talk. Causing uncertainty. You don't know what's going to happen to the market. 10 to price. Worst case outcome that drove that this morning. This move higher in rates. Workers are on a hair trigger. Trump's return could up in markets with a single statement retreat. And now decide proper. 1 climate change causes inevitable inflation that is unmanageable. That's Richard's 2 recent rate shocks. Slump pricing causes minimal monetary disruption. Fontana 24 the effect of current pricing is modest. Now gradually phase applying the monetary policy to limit limited potential makes look supply shocks until threshold states threshold risk costs recently until an extraordinary combination of shocks. Dealing pandemic and false inflation linked to Ukraine causes rapid increase in policy rates. 3 emissions insurance also creates price certainty by stably paying taxes to emissions data, which makes it predictable for firms and the Fed. 4 T regulation solves because it decreases input costs from committee control. Regulations 5 rate hikes now. My capital 24. That's the Trump Trumper. Work over 24 Trump's policy proposal make it worse. 2 shares of over billions of dollars in the Fed would on the side prices surging 16 Nobel Prize winning economists said that are expressing fear Trump bring net inflation. Nobel economists are alone on partisan research predict Trump drive prices sharply higher. Inflation drops to 9%. 5 easy money is bad. Minus 23 initial guess of SVB and check about broadly low rates is from the entire Silicon Valley economy. Easy money created tech bubble less genuine innovation or conservative and the hype of bullshit. This while factor multiple of the guys of investors consider we work there knows that SPF millions from FTS to zero raise 120 million over blend now financial statement is monitoring earnings morning to its metaverse as we reviews on the starting first maybe the bathed in effective altruism that create drives the dream system by easy money is turned into a nightmare. Sonic 1 pick a position. Either the US causes supply glut now or prices are high. The blend causes a supply of Saudi glut. Both cannot be true. 2 prices lows out 24. Saudi balance week oil weak on lower oil prices. Kingdoms that counter significantly due to lower exports. Oil limits led to contractual frequently declining oil prices. Oil growth will be supported by phase out of oil. 3 IRA thousands renewable projects. Lower demand for oil. 4 prices are unstable because of global transition. Whittle 24 global oil got means self-includes the ability to manipulate prices by decade history, but history's biggest imbalance of oil supply demand. EVs take over renewables account for primary energy. Russia Saudi don't have long to diversify supply outships. The 5 outships 5 next year. 5 like non-unique shocks are frequent and inevitable. 6 upstream taxes increase global oil prices. Macaluso. Middle 18 on model show decreases in exports of VAT tax. Trade industry change in industry output, expanding our output towards sectors with low intensity tax, reduces demand for domestic goods, the corporate price adder, increase the price of producer price VAT, reduce lending, resulting in reducing exports, although demand decreases higher export price, leads to higher value. 7 oil, gas makes oil volatility inevitable. 8 no Middle East strong, we are pivoting to Asia tied up with Russia. Energy. 1 no energy independence lab 122 dominant narrative was surplus supply and weak demand now U.S. crude inventories have depleted faster normal demand improved resilient sanctions should improve than surplus narrative is over costs precarious for the Audi Trump's plans to refill the SPR price prices higher well expense on crude increases to highest volumes LNG oversupply causes economic crisis Santo and Pashternova 24 demand contracting last year's price surge increasing alternatives are demand LNG places short faces short-term price volatility long-term policy shifts U.S. LNG faces rising costs and uncertain routes market uncertain routes to the IRA thoughts what all their costs are about 3 the plan solves energy independence the U.S. will lose out in the transition to renewables now that's page 2 in particular Pat patenting and valid chain. 22, nothing against the double bond to solve a shorter crisis, launching more of the market is pointing away from drilling and more toward more renewables. Oil buzz are contested compared with the U.S. cannot control its price volatility and energy independence. Energy prices are high because fossil fuels are highly influenced by contracts and leasing and permitting beyond historical high. Will lock the U.S. then into fuel dependence through energy independence. Must invest in clean energy for output for LNG, aldehyde, 12 carbon dioxide, great use of natural gas service, rich renewable system, potential tax would also bring about carbon capture. 5, Russia is weak or praise 23 for Russian military, but it's gone for good. Even if Russia were to win Ukraine would renewable military power would take advantage of not more loss or almost 180,600 killed, 355,600 we can know the wounded no fewer than 8,785 combat equipment, major heli actual losses are likely greater. You can only or sort of the largest hull losses ever in Europe since 1945. Russia's conventional military balancing has been greatly reduced.
Okay, we're gonna take a break. Okay, 9:30. Are you good for cross?
Yes.
Okay, all the evidence on the energy independence DA, it says it increases domestic use of LNG. Why doesn't that mean that it would trade off with exports?
Because the strength of the domestic industry is determined both by domestic demand and exports. We don't think that there is an import-export trade-off.
Okay,
Your
do you have a piece of evidence that speaks
Your
to
1
that?
and C link evidence is just about the strength of the domestic industry in general.
Okay, sure. The chemical DA, what is this Simpson and Pittman card says? I don't really understand how it applies.
So,
You had an explanation, I didn't really catch it.
Your argument for exempting chemical industry good, insofar as you win an argument that the chemical industry has upstream fossil fuel emissions, is that they can do things like carbon utilization that then recapture the carbon and store it.
Wait,
This
when did we
evidence
make
is
that
that's-
argument? It was just like the plan is linearly worse for it.
It is in your card. Chemical utility. Carbon utilization is in the Krishna Kumar.
Okay, could you explain how this implicates that part of the counterplan?
Well, so if you win that the counterplan competes on the
Yeah.
basis that the chemical industry emits fossil fuels and like would be taxed upstream, your solvency argument for exempting them has to be then that the counterplan resolves that margin of emissions by directly capturing those, or at least that's the solvency argument that is presented in this
Okay,
solvency
that
card.
makes sense.
And we have read a card that process is taken.
BISCON, this Metcalf evidence is like a broad economic study
Yeah.
that says the plan would increase growth.
Yeah.
Does your evidence speak to the perception that industries have on carbon taxes or just the actual economic effects?
Well, that was the reason for the link defense about the perception industry having being irrelevant, because we don't think that individual shocks to industry or industry freaking out about small things is the thing that determines economic growth. And you didn't read an impact to BizCon, you read an impact to economic fundamentals.
No, I get that. I get that you've read other cards that say BISCON. I'm wondering if your evidence speaks to the perception that the industry has of a carbon tax.
I don't understand what the implication of that would be.
Well, obviously we're going to read cards that say BISCON is key. I'm wondering if your link term speaks
okay,
to
and
that.
then we will read cards that say BizCon is not.
I'm not
key.
asking about that argument. Okay. The tariffs uniqueness piece of evidence, where does it say that this collapses the economy? It says stocks drop like 1-2%. Why is that sufficient to trigger the impact?
Because the impact is about business confidence and unpredictable pricing policies, and your uniqueness evidence is about business confidence.
Okay, yeah, but this evidence, this NYT 2-3 evidence does not speak to business
It
confidence.
says that there was global fallout from Trump's
Yes,
tariffs.
and it says
and
the
that
extent
market-
to that global
It
fallout
said Europe's
was a
indexes
1.3
tumbled,
decline
and
in
S&P
the Euro
500
stock.
futures slid, and they come as a severe shock, and the market refused to take it seriously, underpricing the risks.
Okay, if the market doesn't think it's a risk, why does it, I guess this just begs the question. of-
Well, it says the market hadn't priced it in, and then it happened,
Okay,
and
that
now the
makes
market
sense.
is freaked
This
out.
Myers 23 evidence on the interest rates DA,
Yes.
where does it speak to military innovation of,
Your internal link was just innovation everywhere.
no, it talks about military applications of technology, AI.
Well, right, but that
cloud
is premised
computing.
on the fact that there is linkages between the commercial sector.
Exactly,
and the
but your
military
evidence,
sector.
but your
Our
evidence
says that-
specifically only
Our
speaks to
evidence says that
Silicon
easy
Valley.
money creates bullshit innovations in the commercial sector, so insofar as you win an internal link to the military, this proves that.
Okay, 9:30. I'll- No, it's fine. I can do it. Yeah, I should probably.
answer is no.
Oh,
Well, I didn't even hear what he said. That's actually really fun.
Oh yeah.
Wait, what did you say?
How are you asking
We were
this?
going back and forth about like, do you have a credit about this? And Bert was like, the answer is no. Which fair enough. How about
What's
the
the
answer?
answer for?
Yes, he answered for him.
Are you done?
Yeah.
I figured it out.
Stopped at 7:38.
Okay.
The doc was set, but I'll give an order when I look back.
I think I stepped down my house, Steve, it's supposed to be 15 minutes, maybe, like that.
You can see that.
Oops.
Okay. The doc was sent. The order is the tech subsidies counterplan, whatever you have it labeled as. Wherever condos flowed. And then advantage 1, advantage 2.
The doc has a blurb about LNG. Is that
Not relevant. I don't. My doc has the tag, but there's no card, so yeah, not relevant. Just a scratch, yeah. Not
Oh,
relevant.
okay, sure. Got it.
So, tech, I labeled it the D card pick.
Yeah.
Is that where the condo stuff is? Is
Yeah.
that where you all have it?
Mhm.
Okay. I can pull up. Look at that.
And then what
Look at
goes
this one of this.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Okay. Everyone is good?
The capital solves the case of a national innovation policy directed towards procurement for clean energy. It solves both advantages, key to emissions reductions, and clean tech leadership. Prefers efficiency, framing deficits must be tied to quantifiable impacts that outweigh extinction, just shape logical decision of nationality. Now, R&D is necessary for clean energy if we kick its presumption. Amendment 24, support for clean energy. Crucial to recognize how applied R&D plays a important solution through R&D. The most sustainable nature based on DAC improve solar efficient. Cooling understanding investment in applied R&D. Crucial to clean energy and advanced R&D issues about maintaining competitiveness. Energy innovation uniquely requires external funding. New tech gets stuck in the valley of death between proof of abatement and commercialization. Room 20, energy fundamental for new tech. Economic efficiency near limits of physics, energy tech, abilities, by budgets, and sufficient investors focused on funding mature costs, close to viability, nearly all capital finance funding, solar privacy, tech range, shown in the lens of the capital requirements are high development or long term technology, years, both for stimulating private investment, invested R&D, and DX cost reductions, and enable private production and deployment. Now, the first argument is a patchwork deficit. It's absolutely wrong. It's inevitable to some extent. The counterplan provides sufficient clarity, is equivalent to the plan. Josie Baker is writing about things like state-based climate rights, as well as clean energy commitments for private companies, which they obviously don't solve. But the counterplan dedicates a specific new national policy. This is the necessary internally to solving warming across the U.S., which means it provides certainty in that context. The 2AC2 is global emissions. It solves globally. Farmer 24, clean energy policy is beyond the jurisdiction of any new if it will go to clean energy and other stable political support from accidental energy policies. These options elsewhere, one place brings down the cost for others. The camel's nose and the other 10 the IR accelerate that transition. North countries, how much we countries have had effect. Networks the speed and policy contagion networks provide direct system near and bank exchange and knowledge because there has lower cost energy policies can be supported. Other countries may adopt national policies to counter catalyze rapid tech innovation. That's what's globally in 1924. When single government secures affordable zero emissions tech markets by their adoption government steam act costs on the entire econ single government can maximize the transform innovation widespread adoption of tech and last emissions tech is removable effects. I mean, inhibitions change in the tiny corner of a market have chance more effective device right. As if they're doing with the alternative pricing that regularly for zero emission tax new much better costs make it conquers by so much eventually drive the cost of clean tech leading to deployment and diffusion. All of this also impact turns the implicit assumption that pricing must be the only internal link, which is functioning a straight turn to the case. Now, the next 23 is rebound. There's no card attached to this, so you should give the 1 year little leeway. There's no warrant attached, but rebound effect doesn't apply to our firmware technology. Door 22. Gemmas only happens in techniques. 60 process more efficient. New tech obvious. No way to audit it out to create new paradox more commercial. New tech driving construction are not criminal purpose. They're fundamentally different solar wind batteries. No fossil fuels. Repeated requirements are minimal. Requires low below coverage to taste. So EVs, no fuel. Efficiency improvements are extreme. Human waste are not finding the energy from comes from the sun. This also links back to them because Advantage 2 is about revitalizing clean energy tech, which means that this definitely implicates our ability to solve warming. So Advantage 2 turns Advantage 1. The next argument is picking winners. It's inevitable, but also better than pricing. Back to 22. Roll of God. You do invest in tech, making winners, advancing policy strategies, benefits for the private sector, demand sector, for hard debate sectors, making winners, further advancing Peace, peaking winners is inevitable, by 2022, peaking winners is necessary, text physical emerges. Some of these decor tech mobilize for support the pricing of or literacy prices of privacy. Text just facilitating clean energy plus skill to play. They also assume the counterpoise mechanism of nationalized policy where there are sufficient safeguards established which avoids it. The next argument is subsidies fail for regulatory capture. This is only about solving warming, not a deficit to clean tech, so it cannot be cross-applied, but we do solve sufficiently because of the stuff explained above. The regulatory capture is garbage. Chapter 14, regulatory capture goes to real scale and detach the carbon is going to be for any problem without looking at evidence, creating fatals and the possibility of preventing capture. This cross-apply for the decarb stuff of the chemical pollution about the snake oil and CCS stuff fails. This is one person's opinion, it's script of the status quo. We have comparative evidence that are counterpoint, and increasing federal R&D is capable of developing new tech that capable to quote that is capable for a quote whole of society transformation, which is what their threshold is. Pricing only supports stable, mature tech. It cannot internalize immense risk required for decarbonization. So we can't solve better. Column 21 carbon price includes some changes of the effects that are involved in ensuring stable environments, which challenges require now literacy. Not just a tech, not primitive options sitting on a shelf, decarbonization early stages when risks are high. Energy political systems necessarily equal requires compensation with their solution. Carbon prices even at higher levels will be enough. Carbon pricing laws and lowest common denominator solutions, which turns the case column 121. Markets will keep failing successful policy price building and sustaining coalitions every single year. The air existing authority markets offering county-wide prices of fixed rates that toxic. Multiple attack bears with 7 times. Let's say greater time toxic markets, which need the lowest common denominator. Markets signals the misaligned or interest are waiting for a fake signal. They need active workers to mobilize our citizens and displace company industries, creating new industries require initial policy rather than marginal changes. And no tech and DAC is capable of solving G net 23. DAC best option limit global warming 27 plus today to the morning globally. Can have a 2010 per year cost of restricted public. Increase the kilometer energy efficiency utilization to help cities design and penetrate simple modular units to lower cost. Nutrient assortments and versatile thermal energy coupled with space utilization, air caution, their understanding scopes. DC tech and early changes. There's need to establish DC funds supported by government acceleration funds. Doesn't matter great capital required with all the all invested and new tech provide for reducing capital wherever necessary. Investors usually litigate having interest rate and investor right early absorbing uncertainty. SCSD funding under global public use to save the earth from catastrophic risk. They just asserted links to the benefit and didn't clarify what it did, so that 1 year does not get any leeway, but R&D is good for business. Also, we want to basis R&D a clear sense of product and a new product. The IRS offering credit for business, special look for R&D firms getting maintenance performing weight arise cannot replicate R&D need to improve business cutting for productivity is easier. Obviously, IRS offers breaks for R&D such as offset tax along with credit. It's inevitable. It's invaluable for business growth. Tomorrow 21 R&D secure competitive edge and increase profitability most instead of long term the rules make it worth it. Invest in results and patents and innovation and essential for growth. Our lives business and gaining a competitive edge in a competitive marketplace competitive economic balance and growth. This filter of R&D increase productivity and profitability are essential for identifying needs and improving products, and our links are specific to carbon tax, so there's no cross-application about renewables. The decarb pig condo is good. We did one blocks you actually to receive multiple options. They encourage the language by class insurance use, compatibility tests, intrinsic unprovable advantages, add-ons and deficits. Encourages better advocacy, tricks based on the top between construction, free arbitrariness, no objective difference between separating model and unpredictable rules versus them because after you present the rules after one see which goes in neg. It's key to innovation with conversion means key to default vector experiment, drives research, critical education, air nag, vector to air, and after choice text with mutual DAs, sub back office, but our worst biggest person policy. Check condoms about DAs if they win condo combine every counterpoint, discuss ad hoc condo disguise based options, too powerful and incentivize process claims firm to force perms, the warming advantage. It's not existential, ever relevant measure shows it's survivable, sea level rise is slow, extreme weather events have declined, climate zones only move 20 kilometers a year, ag output has reduced by only 1% and biodiversity is stable. That's the close evidence regardless adaptation would check. Society wouldn't wait for extinction, we would build infrastructure, seawalls, farm new crops and help species recover. It also indicts ag models that IPCC report names risks, but none said extinction, scientific consensus errors against worst case scenarios, and there's no reason you should arbitrarily defer aft. The first argument was just published on Medium. This doesn't deny qualifications, it's also citing authoritative sources, and he himself is qualified, so there is scientific backing. It's no underestimation. Every report indicates that they are far worse for assuming worst case scenarios. Chapter 3 agrees. No trial or status quo is a trial. Given our arguments on case, so that mitigates some degree of warming. Increases thumb doors at 23. Earth is much hotter. During the PET experiment, still limited. We have seen rapid warming, which I think there is warming over 20 years to survive temperature compared to worst case scenarios. Adaptation is possible, even if the lacks will. The inevitable people will be forced to adapt to renewable investment now demonstrates humanity's intent on making strides to solve climate. Adaptation fails. For their beer evidence has two warrants. One, anthropogenic climate is worse. Our evidence is assumptive of that and said that there's still momentum because it postdates. Second is hidden fragilities. This is just tipping points, which I'll answer below. 2 points are not of risk. Rosa 24, tipping points actually stays in the city, most are reversible, not away, most not actually stay tipping points. And so much of the thinking cold reversibility that was in time scale by the solar cut out a single moment acceleration for constellation. Climate change is not essential for new recent X risk report vehicle 11 13 contrast actually reported as for assessment of risk activities here text color and actual risk is very clear conclusion that climate is not the catastrophe risk even as over as included magnitude would be 10 times. No published studies that has magnitude those that are indirect max section speed or pathogenesis. There was another has a vector based on support but not essential risk. The world is not in phase actual risk each thing. Here the concern over climate does not overshadow the risks are unrealistic and negative feedback risk downsides. Workers 24 studies incorrectly label serious risks general dramatic and wide percent. Recent studies 6.2 degrees air pollution, cooling impact, rainwater feedback down, human feedback, set warming pollution, called lower emissions, positive feedback attack, and economic source, also fast reductions, and no climate war studies have proven link between scarcity and conflict. Leaders adapt to conserving and intentions will be small scale, which also assumes clear and impact, crisis reduced cooperation. Water 23, the persistent narrative linking climate change inevitable or research common was at this time for wild climate service. Insecurity margin indicates neither necessary nor sufficient, not even the supportive source of like a conflict national report region for history violence outrageous assume moderate weather makes people more aggressive water wars, climate won't happen, masters of conflict with catalysts to co-op water, sliding that leads to co-op water, starting from our government to that energy, co-op and peace, is expecting driver peace, making conflict, shutting down actors, change perceptions, turning to friendship to co-op, face with crisis, even hostile places work together, thinking common threats, no hostilities, increase mutual trust, all answers specifics, one biodiversity, it's wrong, more than one effort, increasing the group of food, nutrients, antibiotics, and more benefit, and allows more greening, increase level of nutrients, so plants can grow faster, and more growing, increasing concentration, nutrition, and agile media, as you increase, 100% increase in CO2 transit to 30% increase in yield, CO2 making experiments, more efficient use of water, when high incidence, fear, stomia, and chlorine proposed, and more levels, and then all bacteria, making plants and make trees grow faster, no impact to disease, for 21, there's no F, disease that Santa as Earth born fast, fails, and Italy, which is more main disease, vector born, agro-serial, potato malaria, around 50 around 1990, but 13% of 7 claims times are like to increase our odds of emphasis on everything, the Tracy also just started migration, that's a hoax, 121. Climate refugees with false data indicates climate not behind migration. Harris conflicts with climate yields and elevated migration plan wages and the setting records are African Middle East production increase dramatically from Asia. Senate agent belief that migration policies about more being biased on models which are wrong in history, evaluating refugees. If not a single climate refugee migrating facts in history don't support claims and no impact to bio-D collapse from 22. EPCs and the said in abundant bio-D crisis, biodiversity homogenization of species, communication, loss of species, and low productive which have low future risk species, critical constituents are still under this type of common acknowledged arcs for conservation not be sought in ecosystem common to the agronomy, forestry, sciences, and medicine. We'll look after our own. The competitive advantage, there's no cyber scenario over only set of lyrics. Data response patterns and war games show countries are de-escalatory and lack motive. Attacks are limited in scope. And retaliation is the best proportion cyber, but never nuclear, air, neg. Every academic method is on sides. It's on our side of malaria with citing government officials and post-states. Our evidence was hyperbole, which has been stood for reference. No large-scale cyber attacks over 20 non-state actors that study style capacity of guns. The original century attacks about US ability to retrieve airborne over surveillance and allegedly derived from cyber attacks. Emphasis on espionage, commercial US opponents have no interest to mark the card there, concede no prologue, so not offense for them.
Where did you work there?
No interest in catastrophic attacks.
But
Okay. We'll take a second. Okay. 617. Connor, you good?
Yeah.
Okay. What was the very last thing that you said on the counter plan?
I believe it was answering links that I benefit.
And it was the card about the like Morrow 21 card?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All of your arguments about solvency being a net benefit to the counter plan because like value of death, etc. Why are they not solved by the IRA?
What do you mean? Our argument is that solvency isn't a benefit because pricing is worse and creates lower quality innovations.
Well, but Colin Ward doesn't really say pricing is bad. He says pricing alone is bad. But like,
I think broadly it's the argument that solely relying on market forces, like the plan, does not incentivize the hard-to-abate technology, or the technology
right, but
necessary
like
for
the
hard-to-abate sectors.
SQO in the plan would not be solely relying on market forces because we have the IRA. So
Well,
like, why doesn't that answer?
Well, then the plan is contradictory because the second advantage says you strike down existing climate regs.
But the IRA is a subsidy, not a
So,
regulation.
but that's still a contradiction insofar as there is, like, you have said some climate regs bad, some good.
Right.
Some of those are struck down.
What
which
is the
are bad.
what is the redundancy
counter
between the
plan-
IRA and a carbon tax?
You mean redundancy?
Well, the argument for horse trading is that it would get horse traded for redundant provisions of the Clean Air Act, which is not the IRA. What
So,
about
like,
the IRA
even
is
if it doesn't strike
redundant?
down the IRA specifically, it still creates the whole overlap thing that you've made a deficit to. But regardless, our evidence
Wait,
is
sorry,
still
creates the what?
the patchwork regs thing that you have asserted is a deficit,
Oh,
like
really?
that still links back. But even independent of that, our evidence is still descriptive of why pricing, maybe even in conjunction with something like the IRA, would still fail.
Okay. The picking winners cards. Meckling is like the government needs to invest in tech because like then that would drive down the cost curve for those technologies. Agree with that, obviously. What evidence says that the government can pick the correct technologies to drive down the cost curve for?
We think that this evidence is assumptive of this and says that there is.
But like it isn't. Like you've highlighted like 4 lines of it, and it does not say that the government has the like informational capacity
Well,
to
it
choose
says
the right
that
sectors.
the process of just picking winners alone, yes, it is inevitable to some extent that there's like favoring to maybe political interest groups, but that is what still rewards, necessary innovation, which is why it still solves.
Wait, sorry. Favoring political interest groups rewards innovation.
Like you have made an argument that it might be regulatory capture, whatever.
Yeah.
But those groups are still key to creating the technologies that are necessary.
Okay.
Like you have to write a card that those industries, whatever the ones that influence Congress, those.
Did you have an interpretation on conditionality? Or was
We
it?
did what we did.
Okay. Good. Or sorry, 617. Okay, 608.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, it's okay. It's the development DA, the interest rates DA, the LNG DA, the Saudi oil DA, the business confidence DA.
That's too many DAs, man.
Sorry, like,
In my home.
Can you say that again?
yeah, development, interest rates, LNG, Saudi, BizCon. Dartmouth, you good?
Yep.
Panel? Okay.
Development can see country can ask for elsewhere that there's no impact. We're not going for it. Interest rates. Extend the uniqueness counterplan. The counterplan bans tariffs in the future and the existing ones, which solves uniqueness argument on the other DA. Do both fails if we have links to the plan. The perception alone argument is wrong. The evidence speaks to the literal effects of tariffs. The Ruger evidence does not assume a world in which the U.S. credibly commits to not adopting tariffs and follows up on that policy by banning the tariffs that exist now. I'll answer warming turns inflation. A risk of a link on the other DA outweighs. Warming is far too off to have conclusive effects, but our links are based on empirics and are widely supported. And warming does not cause inflation. The 24 climate causes inflation, not true. Inflation, monetary temperature does not affect currency circulation. People prices, not like the warmer climate means earlier growing, increasing more affordable. Climate merely affects other goods and models into the monetary side more powerful. Second base easily counter climate policy rather than climate change. Can increase inflation, be product sufficient income investment. Inflation is certainly not nothing to do with money supply model. It's certainly area, but they don't get to cross apply it since no one has said that inflation would collapse the economy, so they don't have an internal link to the impact we are extending. But we're kicking the DA proper. Can see that rate hikes are thumped and inevitable, so there's no offense to the flow because the thesis that carbon policy shocks cause increased rates is empirically disproven, so the plan would not do so either. No one has said that interest rates have any effect on the broader economy, so the fact that interest rate hikes are coming to the status quo does not impact the other DA. LNG, kick it, concede no energy independence in advance. We're not going for it. Saudi DA, concede no Iran impact. We're not going for it. BizCon. Economic decline outweighs on speed and magnitude. Decline creates a power vacuum that China, Russia, and Iran fill in. Escalating global hotspot, they did not answer any of the terminal impacts. Just meant one analytic piece of defense. You know that it has to outweigh. It turns warming. One growth solves sluggish while environmental relation would be less than more economic pillage may be delayed. Alternative energy would price over would put climate issue on the back burner. And the development of alternative energy destroys modeling and international co-op. Yellow 8, global economic downturn. Takes the environment, economic crisis, and emission rapid uptake in environmentally damaging periods such as logging and fishing, economic wars and problems. Countries have been back on commitments on global warming. 2AC1 was tariffs thumb. Business confidence in the economy are booming, which is the only internal link we have to win. Trump heralding a new era of predictability since his pro-business history is definitely documented. Their evidence is awful. It does not say that tariffs collapse the economy. It says that in 3 days they've maybe had a 1% impact on stocks, which is not sufficient to trigger our impact, but they also do not have evidence that tariffs hurt business confidence, which below I will prove is the key internal link. But the counterplan solves this uniqueness argument. It reverses those policies, making those tariffs a mere 3-day impact on the economy, which is substantially smaller than the link. The confidence is directly tied with Trump's promises for predictable energy and tax policy, which means that tariffs cannot implement it. It negatively impacted. Lane 114 business trend around the sentiment off those and go with improved outlook following launching application for growth, inflation, positive accommodation, increased competition, appropriate policy and legislation, nuclear opposition, tired to prompt campaign, lower regulatory costs and transparent policy direction, according to policy, and tax 65% of tax losses, 70% effect to go revenue, resistant to general promises and soft landing. Increased business leaders are facing a positive mindset. Now, they say business confidence not key. It is. The evidence is from 18, does not cite any studies, and is substantially worse than all of our evidence. There are 4 warrants. 1, aggregate demand. Confidence determines business plans, including investment and recruitment. Optimistic spending is the make or break for the demand curve, and a decline would, quote, lead to a recession. That's from written evidence. 2 is macroeconomic environment. Policy-based confidence determines the rules of the economy. Montes 22, biz confidence. Leading indicator macroeconomic activity influence environment. Next, certain scenarios under my confidence and effect on entrepreneurial risk associated with undefined policy and regs. Uncertainty delay recoveries during recession. Macroeconomic variables such as GDP are reducing impacted instabilities arising associated with rules of the game policy. Uncertainty factors for the future and deteriorate business confidence, producing negative effect on economic environment. 3 studies. Negative shock spillover. Stalling recovery to do. 18 studies of confidence business time and influence the market. Asset returns, investment and consumption and confidence multiply paid out. Roll after the pressure of economy because a strong level of confidence are likely to last and be robust, transmit negative business contracts via economic policy. 4 empirics in Galactose. 15 macroeconomic activity and confidence linked. There's not been a single recession not preceded by deterioration. Confidence considered negative confidence shock in terms of good demand. To be low for quarter, they find it optimal to lower labor and capital households experience falling wages, working less and cutting down consumption. The link, I'll do it here, then answer their link to an unpredictable carbon pricing shatters business confidence. Policies arises with a stock value and increased input costs, which is the key internal link, tighter than expected. Pricing would be unexpected and signal the end of climate ignorant business expansion, ensuring all business predicts future tightening. That's our hangy evidence. 4 warrants. 1 is shocks. Corporations are actively against carbon pricing. DPOD 21, non-investment implementation of pricing schemes changing. Competitive environment firms models exogenous shock that leads to production costs, compared to political strategy, parental layer mitigate. Regs to weaken introduction of individual and competitive conditions of companies. 2, spillover. Stocks are not ready for the plan, and that spreads to other jurisdictions. Caratini 19, and carbon measure shocks to the stock market. With measures systemic risk, the market's not ready to absorb shock financial prices and follow swings. In price, firms and clients because the model policy will limit introduction and movement of an important shock up. Policy will not only affect policy, will downstream for lead to not fully increase in exposure. Intermediate to potential climate policy shock. The turn is wrong. 1, uniqueness is decisive. Since they don't have evidence about business confidence, they support Trump because of deregulation and lax tax policy in the status quo. So there's no uniqueness for the turn. Second is result. Expectations assume long-term, predictable, and announced carbon policy, but perceptual effects are immediate. So if we win a small risk that confidence is key, then that would cause a recession before the positive impacts of their evidence are materialized. 3 is negativity bias. It is contagion, so short-term impacts outweigh. Ramp 24. We're not in recession yet, but we could talk ourselves into a negativity can feed on until worries contagion. Investors don't, companies pull back, consumers stop spending because they're nervous. Fear recession could be successfully where it fears to be among our biggest fears. Winning that business confidence is key to the economy is sufficient to beat the link turn, since they clearly do not have evidence that speaks to business perception of the policy of the plan. The defense is wrong. It was totally analytic. Do not let the one air read any new cards because that would incentivize sandbagging and not incentivize the one and R to read the best cards. But past crises do not disprove cooperation was possible then, but it is disintegrating post-COVID. Now is the brink. All the 22 G10 who's born out of financial crisis, what country went right at the rescue this time. United States working to damage Russia's economy. Russia is blocking champions. The G20 divided into powerless Dallas also resisting other regional entities. Initiative equal to the emergencies that might be during previous crises. Governments come up with robust responses. This time around, that is nowhere in sight. Rate hikes. Back to rate hikes. Sorry. I'll answer the internal link turn just in case they try to extend it as offense. Our evidence is sufficiently better. It cites a study where their evidence is just a news article from 23 rate hikes destroy the tech industry. Every 1% increase in interest rates reduces R&D by 3%, VC by 25%, and patent filings by 9%. That reduces aggregate demand and investor risk taking, which are necessary for financing new innovations. Empirics proof overall venture funding has fallen 30% as a result of rate hikes. Do you have anything that you read? Each degree matters is a non-winner. Richard Reaver, World 1.7, worse than 1.6 mistake, and 1.13 slow. Progress not stop, time anxiety plummeted, the people longer, but more water sanitation, electricity, people improve. Across the world, ability to adapt and mitigate risk, not pace, time field. To increase famine, rare, reduction, justice, lower, become more certain, malaria doesn't fall.
Okay, that was in the 2NC doc. So
Can you send us those rate hikes cards?
those were also in the one in my doc.
That was Ma?
I didn't read mine. I actually didn't read a card after the fact. I just extended the one in the internal.
Oh. Okay, sure. Okay. 608.
So you don't, where you take your tractors, you don't,
Never.
so what is your first time?
Oh,
Is there additional step you put on, where you have it?
That should be basically a line board now.
There's a clock or anything? What's the next step?
yes.
So what step?
I could change the job title to be like teaching professor or researcher, or no, teaching professor or something else about one too. Like a professor title, but like,
Yeah.
that'd be like,
That's
One
what
point
it's
is-
at right now, where I'm a senior lecturer, but where you're teaching professor,
Yeah.
additional incentives. We can figure out just like broader academic impact to it. You need to be able to apply for it. Evaluate curriculum or something. But they're like 5%.
Okay, the order is, or actually, sorry, let me send it first. Okay, I just sent it, and then in the meantime, the order is advantage 2, advantage 1, the uniqueness counterplan, and discon stuff.
Wait, which flow?
So the uniqueness counterplan, so I guess that's rates, and
Okay.
then discon.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
What about the substitute?
Oh my gosh, I thought, right.
I ignored everything that you said and I want to apologize.
Oh, that's fine, it's good that you did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that was just a head on the flow. Okay, advantage 1, advantage, oh my gosh, advantage 2, advantage 1, the subsidies counterplan or financial support, whatever, uniqueness counterplan on the rates to sad, and then discon.
Okay, we're good.
Okay. That's good.
Cyber attacks on the grid do cause extinction. They cascade, cause food scarcity, no communication, a lack of transportation, access to all public goods. Iran, North Russia are escalating now as modern push escalates to nuclear war as well because the U.S. is recent as a kinetic attack which escalates because they will retaliate with nuclear weapons. Yes, cyber attacks are evidence that there's no motive, but they are proving that Russia tried to use Ukraine as a sharper tool to refine their cyber innovation with, so they're connecting cyber attacks. And yes, retaliation the U.S. will mistake for kinetic attack. Their evidence does not assume a vulnerable electrical grid, which means that cyber attacks cascade. Yes, there is and no, our evidence is not just saying it's a hyperbole. It says at the risk of a hyperbole, cyber attacks are existential, which is just a slight just rhetoric about how bad it is. The Lewis evidence is wrong. The part they marked, the part about before they marked is just about non-state actors, which is obviously not our argument. Advantage 1, concede defense. We're not going for advantage. The advantage counterplan. No sufficiency framework will win an impact toward deficits. Judge case is unfair, forces 2 and R's R&D is not key. 1 plans for because carbon tax incentivizes investment in renewables. 2, the IRA solves now Jacob and overlay 24. The U.S. driving emission options such as alternative energies about incentivizing fossil energy or use are looking to see this IRA to adopt carbon tax across the financial shield against rising price industrial policy, making pricing more effective now. 2, they dropped 2AC9, which was the permutation, not on the dot, but I intervened to say it in the 2AC. It was a permutation to both the shields all of the net benefit because it means that businesses, it is extremely, because if it is true, or it means that businesses do have subsidies comply with carbon tax, so it would not create a market shock on is one called a game changer, rhetoric claim misplaced and expensive idea version of the false friend. Seeking a illusion government can provide a social technological game changers, including EVs, battery, electricity storage, shale, SMR, underground coal, ocean, thermal, transmission, linkage and plug-in hybrid vehicle most option. Politicians seem desperate, spending glass rolls and water tickets, corporate free market sales for solution use, successful experiences, unexpected negative consequences, unique to Canada. 2AC1 permutation to both, it shields the shock effect because it means that it resolves issues with the status quo being bad. It means the net effect of the plan and the permutation is 0. 2AC2, the perception alone is sufficient. No, our evidence is not just about the literal effect. It says perception of tariffs alone is sufficient that even the threat will do harm. Now, the threat of tariffs is sufficient to collapse global trade agreement 127. Even the threat of tariffs will do a level from the U.S. MCA's contract partnership was finding out press is threatening to ignore this and newly laterally tariff that was funding for negotiating with the U.S. If a president can decide to ignore agreement, change the result of long-term planning. This is a lot of cross border investments. They only make investments long-term. Planning does not give confidence of return to settle. This was misplaced. Expect companies plan for an era in which agreements are treated like suggestions. This will degrade industrial efficiency if Trump does tariffs disruptive events. Even if he doesn't, the U.S. already suffered loss of credibility. Credibility loss is hard to regain. They say just assume the counterpart's credible fiat. What does fiat and credibility mean? Obviously, the counterpart's solvency relying on Trump will not go back on his word is not credible, especially because he just reversed H-1B visas, or reversed his stance on it. It's gone. Okay. Growth does not solve our impact. This does not turn clean energy fossil fuel, or this evidence just says that it turns clean energy, but that is wrong. Fossil fuels will be hurt disproportionately, which means renewables would still be net competitive. And the EIM solves if renewables do come more expensive. No modeling or co-op is relevant for the second advantage. Second advantage to AC1 tariffs to them, except the Trumper or evidence. Extend the Trumper. He's terrible. Wait, can I have the doc? Trump causes inflation and causes a massive market shock. Or evidence that the markets did not price it in, which is rippling throughout markets now. So it does say that it reverses business confidence now. Trump tariffs take confidence on that. 2-2. New tariffs businesses preparing for higher cross-border impact could be far-reaching uncertainties on every level. These create supply chain disruption, be hard for companies to mitigate increasing costs by trade policy, investment, and disrupt global trade. 2AC2. BizCon is irrelevant to growth. Our evidence says that BizCon is a hopeless economic indicator. Confidence averaged -18 between 2000 and 2007, but the economy grew by an average of more than 3.5%. 3.5%. It's useless because of bias and weak correlation. 18. It's unsurprising numbers and numbers become football confidence that correlate to GDP for measure of how the economy. Since 2002 survey had 0.2 correlation, the business just 20% of time survey. Totally useless and swamped by bias. Group their studies. 1. Correlation, not causation. Urban 17. For all execs, enthusiasm to nation solely investment modesty. There is no evidence with the women U.S. believe competence is driving. This is less surprising when you look at the record of competence. Has physical power thanks to vagueness. Isn't some cases that determines features or plus fundamentals of income and competence. 2. It cuts both ways. There's an inverse of every positive example. Urban 17. For every example, you can find the rigor to the same measures that fell that had no major impact on the economy. They also dropped the worst trading argument on the race to establish that the plan eliminates command and control regulations that are equally costly now, which means it does not net increase costs. Also, no shocks. Impact drop the EIM is gradual on the race data, which solves its gradual.
Sure. We can start at 738. What was the last argument you made? No shocks impact?
No shocks link because the EIM is gradual.
Okay.
That's a riot. I can take the 4 students.
We're about to have a fruit war in here.
No, they actually are more empathetic towards one another and solve for kids.
Yeah, they share what they have. That's what I found.
Here you go. So, are you prepared to be front runners with the state capital?
I had a conversation with Peter last week. She was like,
With the,
Carl Baker, but I'm just a former Baylor person.
yeah, just the,
Yeah, she's back at KU now, and then she basically like the second community KU. And she said she would really like it if we stopped the rates. Yes, we do have a couple sides. And she feels totally comfortable in like a state religion board, but as long as KU is not going to like DEI poster child to the Trump administration, we'll be fine.
let's look at the schools.
Yeah.
Well, I think the taxation on the state level, it's, that would impact you. You're right.
Yeah.
We have some tester children, but and the governor, well, the governor's fine, but it's the people. They were trying to get trouble with some Trump-like energy users. And so they're constantly just seeking action. So they're gonna find poster children. I mean, our team, this version of the team has been constant problems.
Yeah.
It's a little bit about it, but I do think national review stuff is happening in high school. It's a bunch of things. Our administration is Yep. They have bigger things to do. Our president went, this is interesting, I need to figure out who the dissertation advisor was, because she graduated from KU. In her dissertation was cited as paraphrasing best decisions. So, I want to figure out who the is the Lord said this or something. Her focus is on healthcare policy, so.
The order is Condier and the rates DA uniqueness thing. Then the counterplan and the second advantage.
Just, can you do it one more time?
Yeah, the is Condier,
Yep.
the rates DA, so the uniqueness counterplan. The counterplan, and then the cyber advantage. Okay, everyone good? Decline outweighs economic decline triggers conflict in every theater of conflict. China, Russia, go work us with North Korea, estimating global hotspots. And because you see the U.S. acting as strong deterrent, India, China become increasingly belligerent, which guarantees nuclear use and rapid escalation to a worldwide nuclear conflict. There is no terminal defense, so it has to outweigh. We have mitigation to substantial parts of the case, and they have nothing on the DA, which means it has to come prior. BizCon-Key is not a winning two-way with a drop. The magnitude of the link, which frames every other one-year and two-way argument. The plane is the next 08's first financial panic and ruins across the economy. These companies dump stocks and investment as possible because they know that their future investments will be unprofitable. They have conceded the spillover link. Not a single word uttered in the 1AR. The 2AR gets nothing. Increases in carbon prices lead to stock market disruptions, which makes investment impossible, leading to downward spirals that cause recessions. Every firm, even firms who area are not directly affected by the plan, would feel the negative effects, which means that it does spiral downwards. That means you have to think about why BizCon is key to think the plan is bad for the economy. BizCon is a linked magnifier. It proves that there is a negative action-reaction spiral to the plan that we have just won, that the first order economics plans are bad, which means that that precedes the evaluation of every other AF argument. Now, BizCon is key to the economy. 1. Aggregate demand. Drop more from the one in the evidence. Companies think existing regulations predict future investment, so they look to that, and optimism in the security of the future investment determines whether or not the economy would slip into recession. Second, the studies, we are just substantially outcarding them here. Armando's evidence is a PhD professor of economics who says that uncertainty increases the risk of negative economic effects, reducing output and GDP, contracting investment. Nodu says, and goes on to say that this is a confidence multiplier that triggers a massive spiral in response to initiate policy shocks like the plan. Empirics are also definitively neg. Our evidence is that there has not been a single recession in history that was not preceded by a decline in business confidence. Our empirics are about small-scale fluctuations, but only our evidence talks about when there was a lapse in business confidence that actually was sufficient to trigger a full-scale recession. Their Cook evidence is intending a specific economic indicator called the ANZ. It's not about the economy broadly or our predictors or when it's wrong. From first studies over single snapshot news articles, they predict how the broader economy will react without over-biasing individual events. That answers both of the cards. The 1AR red. Horse trading solves is absolutely wrong. They dropped the spillover link extended above. EAM solves is wrong. Drop spillover. Once again, our evidence index carbon pricing and broadly, which includes the EAM mechanism. The plan would still hurt stock prices for all of their other arguments. And the 1AR is just far too shallow and not actually responding to any of the substance of our evidence, so you should defer to actual qualified authors. Now, the rates DA do both does not shield. We agree with the 1AR. It resolves issues with the status quo, but inclusion of the plan is the shock that breaks CEO optimism. It's a total 180 and would follow the banning of Trump's, which would be a shake to the economy because the counterplan rescinds the ones that Trump implemented on Saturday. Perception alone is not sufficient. The Tweety card just says that markets are on hair trigger alert, but that's waiting for Trump's statements. That's not sufficient given the magnitude of our link about climate regs, specifically showing business confidence. The counterplan also clarifies that we will never do tariffs again in the next 4 years under Trump, which definitely is reaffirming to both the international community and CEOs that there will not be another existential shock, which means that that is sufficient to solve, which answers any arguments about how he reverses his statements because they know for sure that it'll never be possible under his regime. Now, that's not sufficient to trigger our DA independently because their evidence just says it, quote, do harm. But they conceded that the link shapes uniqueness, which is done on the DA proper. Our uniqueness evidence, obviously prices and tariffs that were implemented. Markets are still fine now. We've had specific uniqueness evidence pricing these in. One in our lanes that the optimism among CEOs are higher because they expected Trump's pro-business policies and anti-climate regulations. Revenue is also increasing now, which would say that it'll hurt BizCon or collapse the economy. And it reverses the 3-day impact. The card they read about collapsing global trade, once again, does not rise to the magnitude of saying it would cause a literal recession, which is what all of our linked evidence. It doesn't identify spillover, which means that they cannot go for this inevitable perception spills over or etc. because they have not read evidence that rises to that level. And once again, link frames uniqueness, which is a conceded warrant from the 1AR. That other card, the conclusion just says the last loss of credibility, but total financial collapse is distinct and categorically outweighed by the link. Fiat does solve. It's not a complete declaration that he will not do it. It specifically specifies that he will not do it in the next 4 years. They did not make a theoretical argument about why we can't fiat in the future as well. So this is a total non-starter, and they do not get to say it's not credible given they have no evidence on this. The H-1B stuff is relevant given the statements I did above, but the counterplan is binding enough for investors. And once again, link frames uniqueness, especially when the DA impact is conceded. So try or die can only go neg. You know the plan guarantees extinction, which outweighs her case. There's no cyber impact. Our evidence is 5 years newer than their impact process says that there's no motive globally. Our evidence is far more qualified. It's citing every single academic method while theirs is one-off snapshots from a guy who admits that his thing is a hyperbole. It cites empirics, data, response patterns, war games, all of which show that they are de-escalatory and peaceful. Attacks are always limited, and if they do win retaliation, it's never nuclear and always proportional to cyber, so there's no escalation that could possibly outweigh a total economic recession. We're also citing military experts and government officials and assumes the current geopolitical climate. Obviously, DA turns the case, it fractures the entirety of cyber systems and makes every other adversary more aggressive. So a financial shock would make the incentive and give them the reason if they're correct about Ukraine and China providing a brink for any sort of cyber attacks. Now, Lewis also says that attribution means the U.S. will not retaliate because it would not risk unnecessary escalation. It's citing empirics. No one's ever died from it, and our opponents do not have interest. The 1AR just said it's only about Nazi actors. That's just blatantly false. It says, quote, Nazi actors and states, and references, quote, U.S. opponents directly, which obviously refers to the adversaries that they think would attack in the first place. This is obviously assumptive of all of the claims, that our evidence is just far better, it's more qualified, and far more recent, which is why you defer neg. They just asserted Ukraine as a motive, not a reason why it would cause a war, because our evidence 3 year doing says that it assumes the current geopolitical climate and that there's no incentive to do so. And even if Russia were to attack, the U.S. would not get drawn in, which is something that their evidence does not assume. They just asserted the grid is the internal link. No part supports that, but regardless, there's not a reason why we would just launch a nuclear weapon if the grid system went down. They also admitted it is a hyperbole to say that it's truly existential, but unmitigated means it's definitively trying to die, so our impacts are truly existential, and that is not distinct hyperbole.
You have to kick the counter.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Counterplan, concede to both, no offense cost supply. They conceded warning, so there's no net offense here. Judge kick, obviously not a very good issue, not going for it. Yeah, let's try that conceded link frames weakness, and the case is small.
146.
Some of this concept I was doing was I refuse it. I'm furious. I don't use bagel ones, but I don't get the sense. Breakfast taco or whatever. Madison says. He's out of here for Chinese. She's better. Well, she works like 60 hours a week. But maybe she's pushed out for more of this one. Like she's. We have one major scholarship. It's for students that include financial needs. Just walk up to.
Let's say advantage 2, and then BizCon, and then rates. Similar to the 2NR, I'm just going to do the uniqueness to make more rates.
But it's BizCon and then rates?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I will say link defense, and then BizCon knocking, and then uniqueness.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Michigan. Cool.
The clean tech race is a game of inches. If we do not out-innovate China and Russia to reliable renewable technology that is secure and can be scaled, we will lose the offensive arms race. They will seize the opportunity to conduct a large-scale cyber attack while the U.S. energy security systems are fragile. That's Jeff. Michigan culture of impact defenses trick them into never saying no internal link on this advantage. You should not insert it for them, and you should frame their arguments about motive, etc. through the Jeff evidence, which says that the status quo creates a window of opportunity for a large-scale cyber attack, which means that their evidence does not answer that, and our evidence speaks to the motive. In particular, they have not disputed the premise that there is a clean tech race, or that losing it would drive an inherent motive for cyber attacks. Cyber attacks outweigh the modern evidence, describes them as an existential threat, says that they are not dabbling in paranoia, but recognizing the real risk of the break of blackouts and brownouts like Texas and adversaries scaling out their capabilities like Russia cyber attacking Ukraine, which is in preparation, and describes it as a sharpening stone for a larger scale cyber attack against the United States that unleashes a parade of horribles. The GNR mostly misses the impact via because they're debating it like cyber war, but a large scale cyber attack which have power, communications, healthcare systems, etc., and generally reduce societal resilience to black swan events causing healthcare, for example, would cause existential diseases, causing communications, could cause nuclear miscalculation, etc. So you should prefer our societal resiliency impact filter over a discrete internal link train, and importantly, it turns BizCons by only need to win a low risk of the case or the impact, because shutting down any amount of economic activity would have the same sort of spillover and ripple effects as described in the link evidence in the 2NR, and shutting down economic activity, and if there is a cyber attack that just shuts down the ability of industry to power itself, that obviously has worse implications for BISCON. So even if I don't win the Dennis terminal, the plan solves the BISCON impact, but I will win defense to their internal link to the economic impact. Now their defense is terrible. Valeriano evidence is writing in the context of cyber war. Our argument does not have to be this sorts of escalatory reactions about whether there's motive now. Monarch says there's evidence that Russia is using Ukraine as a training ground for cyber attacks, that China, North Korea, and Russia are all probing the grid. And you should also frame it with the Jaffe evidence about the window of opportunity. The Larson evidence is about non-state actors. States do have the scale and scope. Does not assume Russian cyber attacks in Ukraine, which is a warrant in the Monarch evidence. Lewis evidence says that most states lack capability. Our evidence says that Russia and China have the capability and they have the motive, given that we're able to lose the clean tech rates. This card is also barely highlighted and cuts off before any warrants. It says, quote, opponents have no interest in catastrophic cyber attack. Why? And then it says, neither Russia nor China would be by attack on US. What the fuck does that even mean? Michigan, highlight your cards better. Their cards being from government officials is not actually cited or highlighted in any evidence, but our evidence also assumes the sort of history of recent blackouts like Texas and the escalation of cyber attacks from non-state actors that similarly cites government officials. That is not de-escalatory. We do not need to win any cyber war impact, which answers most of the 2NR defense. The military officials is relevant because that is also about cyber war. That does not turn the case. I get to make the new turns the Dissat argument because the argument was new in the 2NR, but it fractures cyber is totally incoherent and not warranted in the 2NR. Ukraine and China provide a break is our argument about cyber attacks. Attribution is irrelevant because it's about that sort of presumes a large-scale cyber war. It's only about non-state actors is wrong. Our evidence speaks to the capability of specific state actors. The evidence is not more qualified. The Monarch has several degrees that is writing specifically in the context of cyber attacks. Of Ukraine being a motive is a reason that it causes a large-scale cyber attack, even if it doesn't cause war, and which answers the rest of their arguments. That is not hyperbole. That our evidence says that at the risk of sounding like hyperbole or dabbling in paranoia, it is an existential threat, and our evidence says that the grid, the Jaffe evidence says that the grid will become vulnerable in the short term. Now, BISCON. Two pieces of link defense with the 2NR explodes off. One, horse trading. Our evidence says that there would be no immediate economic effect because the plan would be horse traded for other inefficient command and control regulations that increase input costs. Our evidence is not assume this. The 2NR gets to this argument and then just says it doesn't assume the link. It does assume the link. It indexes their arguments about anything normal way that a carbon price would go down and says that it would be horse traded for other things that cause that are sort of inflationary or that cause businesses to have high input costs, and that overall mitigates the link. Second is that it's gradual. It is not an immediate shock. It is not an immediate shock because the EIM would start low and then would be gradually phase in over time, which answers that it causes a run on stocks. That's the one to see. Brooks evidence. Job spillover is not an answer to any of this when we are doing particular warrants. And if business confidence is key, our argument will be business confidence is hosed now. So you know that a recession is coming in the short term, which means that a shire die for the affirmative. Now, BISCON is a totally fake. Confidence is not correlated with growth vibes. Does not cause a recession. Confidence does not actually determine economic behavior. One, empiric confidence averaged negative 18 between 2000 and 2007, but the economy grew 3.5% per year. Our evidence does say studies confidence goes with the business cycle. The economy has yearly ebbs and flows. You should not interpret lost confidence as accidental but typical. Second, only our evidence is directly responsive to theirs. It says numbers have been become political football, and surveys are swamped by political bias because they disproportionately survey businesses with low confidence. Confidence has at best a 0.2% correlation with growth. Cook evidence is not just setting Amazon and uses that as an example of why studies are Cook. The three, correlation, not causation. Even if it is true, it is correlation, not causation. Increases in income and wealth is a confounding variable that causes both BISCON and GDP growth to go up. So it looks like BISCON causes growth. That's urban 4, cuts both ways. There is an inverse of every example. Our evidence is not small scale fluctuation. Confidence plummeted after Hurricane Katrina, but did not impact the economy. 5, evidence is not just news articles. They are written or citing an economist and a slew of empirics. Now, uniqueness debating on the racist side. Counterplan is not credible. Michigan cannot feed out to simply solve problems when we read 2 pieces of uniqueness evidence, the post-state and assume that the sort of tariffs, and then the Krugman evidence from the 1AR is very good at assuming even if Trump does short tariffs or doesn't do tariffs at all, that would still cook business confidence. 1, tariffs, 1, the evidence is decades old in this economic climate. 2, we see evidence as the Trump tariffs which post-state their uniqueness evidence and happened yesterday caused a short-term shock analogous to their climate policy shock. Global markets, quote, slid and quote, had not priced in tariffs so severe, so it was catastrophic for them. Second, the uniqueness counterplan cannot solve the first party reach should be Krugman, but it says the perception of tariffs shuts down economic trade and projections about future trade because the U.S. is threatening to impose tariffs, which makes it look like a non-reliable economic partner. It says merely the threat is sufficient and the counterplan cannot solve this because, quote, credibility once lost is hard to regain. Third, they did not really answer that Trump told lies all the time, so the counterplan cannot provide a credible market signal. 4, Trump structurally shocks markets. The 2, evidence says that businesses know that he can end the economy with a tweet like his first term, so even if it's not tariffs or the uniqueness counterplan solves the individual problem with tariffs, it does not solve the perception, which answers their argument about recession. The late evidence is so old. Our evidence is from today about tariffs. It says they cause a global shock, and the recession evidence, the link to that is business confidence, and the link about shocks is thumped, which means that it's that is not unique and is trying to stop a cyber attack. Get a bait. Yeah.
was a good debate. I think I voted negative. I think that the general like internal link defense that you have on the BizCon stuff is good. But I do think that the 2NC card that is specific to the affirmative on what a carbon tax would do to the financial markets includes a pretty solid line in there about how it would cause or potentially risks a financial crisis. And the specificity to the plant text is pretty solid. And so I think the internal aspect of just that evidence alone likely accesses then the impact that is then below it. You don't really have a lot of arguments about BizCon being kind of, your internal link defense on BizCon does not cause recession, needs to be phrased better as both kind of a combination of thumpers. It goes up and down all the time, no big deal, no problem. It will continue to go up and down indefinitely into the future. There are all of the potential ways in which this potentially happens. But you couch it more within the Trump tariff, Trump tweet debate in uniqueness instead of just cyclical ups and downs. And considering that, when I read that particular 2NC link evidence, I think it's pretty strong, and I don't have much of an indict to it. And the only thing that you have is this horse trading argument, and honestly, that evidence doesn't get up to the level of the quality of that link. It also doesn't necessarily really talk about business confidence. It's more about what Republicans want for political wins. And so I think their impact is relatively large. I think it's weird, just generally speaking, for the negative to have better link evidence on the carbon tax debate. You clearly should, have better both 2AC link defense arguments or retain stuff that's contained in 1AC. Because honestly, I think your 1AC cards probably respond to portions of this. But I need that in order to say that their link is not true. And that a short-term moment of panic does not lock us into significant economic crisis. So in terms of the credibility recruitment evidence, I do think that the counter plan, I think we're currently in a moment of businesses are starting to get worried. I think the announcement of the counter plan probably reverses a significant portion of that, and the credibility part of that evidence is more about credibility in the context of relations with other countries, and not necessarily whether or not businesses would feel okay. I also don't think that the evidence is at the level, again, of the link debate that happens in terms of the 2NC. And I'm mentioning the 2NC card because I think the 1NC card, even though it uses the term shock, it doesn't get to the financial crisis until they read it in the block. So I do agree a little bit, just by the way, 2AR I thought was an awesome speech. I think some strategic decisions really shrunk the debate massively in terms of the quality of your offense and the quality of original 1AC cards in terms of advantages. And so it's weird that your app got so small considering. But 2AR was pretty solid in terms of like line by line debating. The impact debate on the cyber stuff was pretty cool. However, I do think you're somewhat wrong in terms of, I think you're right that cyber can be a thing that Russia or China potentially can use for future conflict scenarios. I don't think you're doing great in terms of the motive of immediate cyber attack coming now and clear scenarios in which that makes sense. And when they have much of the Nate block and the 2NR is just like time frame, turns the F. That portion of the debate is just much better, and I don't think you have much of a response to that. So I do think a cyber attack could be devastating to the United States. I think it could potentially escalate. It could not as well, but I do think that there's some motivation questions on whether or not China and Russia would strategically be deterred from even engaging in that in the first place. But I do think in the event of a potential like big power conflict in the future, that the cyber component probably would reduce U.S. hegemony, leadership, ability. But if that is enough to reach kind of a terminal impact, I don't know. And I don't know when that scenario is going to happen 30, 50 years down the way. I think their time frame stuff turns the app is pretty solid.
You or me, Mr. Mulder?
Okay.
I think it's pretty. I said you or me. He said I don't care.
Okay. Okay. I voted F. I mean, I agree with a lot of Delo's decision, but I think the place where I differ is I just thought that the horse trading stuff was much higher risk and I think just like much more harmful for the ag on the DA. The 1EC has an entire advantage that is like the plan gets horse traded for pro-business regulations to like offset the economic cost of imposing a carbon price. And I just don't really think that there's any defense to that. And I'm a little bit sympathetic because like, you know, the 1AR doesn't spend a lot of time explaining this as like link defense. But I think these cards in the 1EC are pretty good. I think you know, it's extended in the 2AC and the 1AR, so I think the 2AR is allowed to explain them a little bit more. And I think that just like massively dampens the risk of the link to the econ DA. I think, you know, carbon pricing is probably bad for the economy because it hurts business confidence. But I don't really think you get access to this like spillover and stock price panic stuff nearly as much as like I think you need to in the 2NR. Because, you know, they're winning an argument that the plan is horse traded for pro-business regulations that would just like reduce the burden that environmental regulations pose on the economy. If the government's response to the plan is to just like broadly deregulate energy, I think that means that like a lot of these arguments about how just like firms begin freaking out and thinking that like more just like restrictive environmental policies are coming, which I think is like the basis of your spillover argument, seems really wrong to me because the response to the plan is to just deregulate energy in a bunch of other sectors. There's also this argument that just like the plan is gradually phased in. I mean, I think that's fine. I think it dampens the risk of the link to the dis out a little bit. So, you know, I think some businesses are scared of the plan, but I'm hesitant to just like say that the app immediately results in a cycle that destroys the economy. I also thought that Dartmouth was a bit ahead on both this just like perception of Trump tariffs is sufficient to just like trigger uncertainty in the economy, and also that BizCon is just not key to the economy. So first of all, on the perception of tariff stuff, I don't think there's a card in the debate that says that tariffs do not hurt the economy, and the 1-year carbon card is very good at saying that just like people are not going to trust Trump again, that businesses are worried about future tariffs, and that just like even if there's a counter plan that just like immediately reverses it. I don't really think there's a piece of evidence that says that that is sufficient to resolve the fears that businesses have about tariffs. And the Krugman card is like very explicit that it's just like the threat of tariffs alone is enough to create a lot of fear in the economy. So I think that, you know, uniqueness, not perfect. There's a risk that there's a lot of uncertainty around just like the state of the economy now. And I also think that the more I think about just like the BizCon yes, no key to the economy debate, I think the more I think that Dartmouth is winning that just like it's mostly correlation, not causation. And when I went back and looked at some of your evidence, it seems to largely say that just like, you know, business confidence is like a strong predictor of recessions. I don't think that rises to the level of saying that low business confidence on its own is enough to cause a recession. And you know, obviously other uniqueness issues. Case, not huge. I think the cyber impact defense is pretty persuasive. But you know, I think that there's some chance cyber attacks are existential if they happen. I think the increasing electrification of the grid is going to make other actors like have more incentive to launch a cyber attack on the United States, and also just like increase the danger of cyber attacks because it means that they're more vulnerable to just like broader, I don't know, computer stuff that could exist. Yeah, I think that link defense in the block or 1NC would be really helpful in just reducing the risk of the cyber advantage a little bit. I think the impact defense is going fine, but you know, it's not really that developed in the block. It's not super developed in the 2NR. So ultimately some risk of the cyber thing, pretty low risk to the DA.
I voted affirmative to prevent what I thought were pretty unlikely cyber attacks, but I thought the DA risk was smaller. Three cuts to the DA. The first is horse trading. I won't reiterate everything that's been said except for just to read the line. The plan, which is describing the horse traded plan, would give flexibility to make long-term investments, regulatory stability, and the price signal would spur innovation. It's like the flexibility to make long-term investments and regulatory stability is like really close to the way that you're describing the necessity of the SQUO as it relates to BizCon. I don't really think you ever responded to this. And in fact, several of your answers to Thumpers were like, it's okay if tariffs are happening as long as they are coupled with a broader deregulatory approach and coupled with a pro-energy response. So like, it just felt like this was kind of missing from like the way that you all thought about debating this position. Admittedly, like I would have liked maybe a 1AR that went back and highlighted a little bit more of this card. Like if you look at the surrounding parts of this, it's like actually quite good at answering, like uses phrases like give businesses the predictability that they would need. That's a place where like, yeah, that would be nice. Second is the tariffs number. Just like independent, like zooming out for a second, the idea that Trump would impose tariffs and then get rid of those tariffs, but the big massive tariffs have not caused your DA in the short term, is like, and your story is about predictability and long-term business investment. It's a hard thing to say, we did something, it was really bad, we're gonna reverse it, that's now okay, and companies will now trust that it is okay in the future. Without any evidence kind of describing businesses' reactions to that, we're just like all in spin zone here. So the thing that helped me for Dartmouth was their evidence, like even the threat of tariffs seems to cause a pretty substantial impact. I don't think you have evidence that says that the threat would be minimized by the counterplan, even if the material reality would. Their evidence directly ties those like fears of trade loss to long-term planning for businesses, which I think is your internal link to your TA. I'm also with Gabriel on BizCon not key. Like your like duo card, I think is your good one. But like Montez is for sure just a lit review. Angelos is like seems to fall prey directly to their correlation causation problem. It's like if we look at all of the recessions, BizCon has declined along with them, which is like to me kind of obvious that if there's a recession coming, business confidence would decline. And their ad is kind of saying like, yeah, that's why your studies are conflating those two kind of, or conflating the sequence of those variables or the causality of those variables, I guess. So that all got the DA to be really low to me. I'll say just really quickly, and this is actually kind of relevant to the rest of my decision. I don't think the 1NR read turns case to the cyber advantage. I thought you just read warming. So I did give the 2AR the new turns econ thing, which I kind of like, didn't necessarily be the thing that like pushed over it. In a really close debate, I kind of thought I wasn't gonna give that, and when I look back at my flow, I ended up giving them what I thought was like, like, given that they win every part of their advantage other than the kind of like, is it super escalatory? The fact that we like lose all of our healthcare, or lose all of our transportation, or there's like, even smaller cyber attacks, I do think that it might be sufficient to trigger the DA. The advantage is like pretty low. I thought your impact defense was really good. I do think it's kind of wrong about motive, given the Dartmouth evidence. Like the sharpening the stone thing, the Iran and North Korea looking, both of those are like kind of helpful. And I do think that Dartmouth is kind of correct that your impact defense is answering more like how is it used in war, not like what happens if one just like happens. And like maybe it is escalatory or de-escalatory, but it can still like collapse our infrastructure in the interim. And given that I thought that there's a medium-sized risk that those attacks are coming, and they collapse the economy, I thought that they kind of want a larger impact, internal link to your impact than you did. Quick advice for both sides. The first is, for y'all, I thought that in this debate, making the debate only about BizCon really hurt you. Like, no discussion of fundamentals at all meant that like you had to tell this narrative of like, long-term planning, predictability, businesses need to know exactly what they're seeing, it's a shock, they don't like it. And those links, to me, are like, all thumped by the SWO, but a link that's just like, the plan like deletes a big chunk of the economy is like easier. Maybe they answer it differently, but it forces you to engage the like other parts of the debate that maybe you don't want to. But it seems to me like you're focusing on like really quick threshold link for the strength of speed, but it's causing some other like problems for you. Second, I thought the counterpoint was going really well for you, like very, very well. The two things that I thought were potential hangups were one, I don't think you should read such powerful perm cards. Like phrases like it cushions the negative effect or whatever are like obviously going to be taken by the app to use for perm shields. But just like, businesses don't mind subsidies. Like just like almost like a worse card to answer the perm than the one that you're reading, so they can't use it for the shield. I also thought it might be helpful to just add a deregulation plank to this counterpoint. I don't know if you want to do that in the 1NC or the 2NC. If you went for the counterpoint, I'm not sure that, I don't know how all of that gets resolved. I don't think not having the dereg counterpoint would have like killed you on the counterpoint, but it for sure would have helped. And then third, a card advocating, the other part of this uniqueness counterpoint that I thought could be changed is, it's possible that you could change the perception of future tariffs by having an external actor restrict Trump's authority. So be like Congress restricts Trump's like ability to tariff. That might be able to send a better perception that Trump isn't just like whimsically deciding whether or not he wants to do tariffs again in the future or not. And you could say that like the threat is minimized because of that. And then you would have like a solvency card for your counterpoint instead of just like each side debating like what we think would happen. Three thoughts for you. The first is, I think the better thumper to BizCon right now is DeepSeek. It's harder for them to counterpoint out of, and it was like I don't know, NVIDIA lost like 17% in an hour or something like that. It was like huge. I don't really know what they say to that, and it seems to have really shocked our tech industry. I think keeping advantage 2 is key to the economy alive in the 1AR would have really helped. And then, to me, kicking with, I mean, I talked to you all about this the last time I voted against you. Kicking warming is like playing with fire with this. If you're going to do that, recognize that like all your good cards are under their advantage. So you gotta read like one or two more cyber impact cards in this 1 hour. I thought like, you can kind of minimize the redundancy of a lot of your impact explanation on this advantage by just being like, Russia, China, Iran, existential, infrastructure collapse, more card, and then let, you know, your 2 AR is gonna be verbose anyway, so let Holland be the one that kind of like explains what's going on in those cards. Michigan, you got questions?
Yeah, I guess the first thing is just to follow up for the thing. So we were trying to say dereg, we weren't sure how to sort of be at that in a way that made sense. Like some of the cards are describing like statutory authority under the CAA or whatever. Like, what do you think? How, I guess, would you think this plays out, and like how would it look like?
I think two approaches. For me, one is to just ask in cross-ex like which regs get repealed, and they have to answer, for me at least. And if they don't, you could just be like, repeal the regs that they're going to say that they're repealed in order to solve their advantage. That would work for me. I think Clean Air Act is the big one. So like, eliminate emissions-focused regulations tangentially related to the Clean Air Act. You're right that internal link card also references the IRA. It is ambiguous to me whether or not the applicable back parts of the IRA. I thought you were good in that cross-ex. It was kind of counterintuitive to me, and Colin was kind of blustering, but it's a meaningful, Republicans would probably ask for the IRA to be repealed in the world of the horse trade.
Okay. And then I guess just uniqueness proper. So obviously if we read cards on tariffs that would help. But do you think there's a way to spin besides this like independent agency checks, or was it more so like we just needed a solvency advocate at the very least? Okay.
So I think the solvency advocate for the counter plan.
So like two in our spin, whatever, like wouldn't have been sufficient given their
You could just open up this stock market and read a card about that.
Yeah.
Turns out things aren't collapsing, things are okay, businesses will be fine.
It's really fun.
Then it's just like, your card's about all businesses across the United States. Oil has a much bigger impact with discount, substantially more important than what is a relatively limited tariff application considering his original promises. All of that has been factored into the stock market is the other argument that you need to read. That's why you read the shock stuff. So
I also think a card that is just like businesses are not worried about tariffs would be helpful. Your uniqueness evidence is like businesses are like happy about the Trump economy because of other things, but it doesn't say that like tariffs are not something they're worried about, and their evidence is really explicit.
I guess a follow-up to that is, do you think we can spin, as like, obviously read a card about that and say all of their cards that are about like foreign trade and like other countries being affected, that's not relevant, it's about U.S. recession, U.S. business investment, or you think there's still?
It's not, that would not win this debate for me. Their approval card says that companies in the United States are making decisions kind of presuming that they will lose export markets based on retaliation from U.S. trade. So that wouldn't solve in this debate, but like, that's helpful.
Okay, and then I guess to answer leak defense about this dereg thing, I guess I know you maybe said the predictability shift stuff is less persuasive of a link as opposed to just like asset stranding. Do you think you can frame it as like rolling back regs while implementing new regs that still drives climate fears? I mean, I guess that would maybe be thumped kind of by the status quo, but like to get around this linked term, just like it's unpredictable what they
Your
dereg.
short-term argument makes sense, because if you're doing a carbon tax and deregulations being orchestrated, negotiated within Congress, that's resetting the table for all of the green businesses and fossil fuel businesses. They don't know what the fuck is happening and how that's going to work. And so in the short term, as your evidence says, companies stop hiring. They stop buying the products that they need because they're not sure if that makes sense. Then oil companies aren't drilling or they're not buying new leases. But you need to have really good uniqueness evidence that's just like, we're in a tight spot. And right now is critical for us to be able to maintain our economy. And the problem is you don't have that argument.
Yeah.
It's not great.
So their like conservative case for a climate plan article, that like Baker proposal, that's proposing a $20 carbon tax. So it's like $20 carbon tax would nullify, it's basically, that's what Republicans would agree to say, get rid of the Clean Air Act. So I think your link should be it's way bigger than the thing that they're like horse trading ARG assumes, as proven by the fact that the Clean Air Act is not solving warming in the status quo or meaningfully reducing our fossil fuel emissions. Also, like, it affects all of the transportation sector, which, and like oil, which the Clean Air Act has very little to do with. So like, but again, that's kind of my problem with DA, is like, that's all more fundamental based. It's not like the shop. It's like, here's relevant linked distinctions about sectors affected.
Yeah, I just think there needs to be like any ink on this in either the one or the 2NR. Like the 2NR basically is just like horse trading, no, we have a link. And I think that you just need to be like, it would take a really long time for horse trading to happen. Like businesses would be really uncertain in the short term. The regulations that would be repealed aren't as impactful as like the plan is harmful to the economy. Just anything like that, I think just like dramatically changes this debate real.
Okay, and then I know maybe I think it was Bergen who talked about this briefly. I mean, obviously 2NC didn't answer Vivo explicitly, which is my fault. But if the 2NR, I guess, imagine a world in which obviously we extend benefit, and we extend that and like not go for solvency per se, but just like it is a credible commitment to do like market-based things via subsidies, kind of, and like that would be the thing that could result in dereg as well as also committing to clean tech. So it would like both mitigate some of the case because we're committing to the race while also like if Republicans really care they could horse trade this would be defensive enough.
I mean, I think the counterplan could be helpful for you, like on the second advantage. It's like the terminal impact that they're going for is just like we need like the United States grid to become electrified.
Yeah.
So like counterplan seems really, really helpful for that. So, you know, even if it like, yeah, with this like perm shielding argument, I still think that's like pretty useful because you still have the link of just like short-term shock to the economy that like hurts a bunch of businesses.
I also think you can make the argument that dereg is already happening. That,
Okay.
I mean, the Chevron decision, that's huge.
Yeah.
We're just gonna fire everybody within the departments, also big. So,
Yeah, you're right. I was thinking that like
I-
all the things that the plan would be horse traded for are probably like happening now.
Yeah.
It's like the Clean Air Act is gonna be just like hollowed out. It's like, I don't know, any like regulation that the Trump administration can be repealed, like they're already working on repealing. So it's like, maybe there could be some congressional horse trading that is a lot better for businesses, but like, we're kind of trying to do that already.
And then I guess on this, do you think it would help with the 2NC that politics and cars, which is like they really made this limits the risk of horse trading or like
Sure. For the counterplan?
and just the case, like the answer D, right? Just like they wouldn't horse trade or like they would hate both policies.
I'll hate both the plan
Like
and
so
the
if they
counterplan.
said that they would get horse traded because carbon tax would be comparatively more popular, and if we just read that's wrong.
I think the argument that it's like the executive will deregulate everything in the status quo, which means that there's no like other regulations that could be repealed post-plan, and then just like a card that is like Congress will not pass a new law just because it's very difficult for Congress to pass laws that are just like there's no chance that like a bill passing the Clean Air Act, the repealing the Clean Air Act just like passes post-plan. I think that works really well. Yeah.
Okay.
you need to make a solvency argument. They're just gonna do things that counteract what the carbon tax does. It's just going to result in failures. So we deregulate the grid. They'll add subsidies to the fossil fuel companies that are hurt by the carbon tax. It just results in the exact opposite of what their economists say their plan, why their plan should be implemented. Highlighting, you will have some highlighting issues. Like, there's definitely a lack of sentence structure in a few portions. And I think a few key terms that are needed to add both defense or offensive arguments. So whoever was helping to highlight some of the arts that you read,
Okay.
they need improvement.
Last, just really quick thing, warming, defense, was it like, I don't know how people felt, like, it's kind of weird being warming because it always seems like it's really big, so
Yeah.
answering this minute migration disease stuff, I don't know if that's better or like the whole tipping points.
I think answering the terminals was really helpful. Just like disease, no climate war, no just like migration. I think that sounds good. But I don't know. I think the warming debate was going really well for you in the counter plan. Trust that. Just like economic defense. Like you're gonna beat the warming debate most of the counter plan that case.
Okay.
I don't know why some people aren't reading uniqueness, like Europe's on track in cutting their emissions, China's actually further ahead than what they originally said in terms of their peak, and the United States is still on track. Like, I don't think the app is necessary to solve for worst forms of climate change.